Good evening. Welcome to the May 5th, 2021 regular meeting of the Oceanside City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. And we're going to start with roll call.
Mayor Sanchez.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Keim.
Here.
Councilmember Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez. Here. Councilmember Weiss.
Thank you. And we have a very special guest today to do our invocation, and that is Pastor Dan Lights of Calvary Chapel, Oceanside. Please stand. Yes, that's a great place for you. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you for having me. Father of all creation, we ask that you would bless these proceedings. Lord, thank you for these elected officials, God, who you've called to steward over the resources of this beautiful city. Lord, I pray for your help and your wisdom in their governance. Lord, that they may be reminded at all times that you are the God of all creation. Lord, would you move mightily in this place? Lord, would you just descend your wisdom upon each one of their minds? Lord, may they be used as a vessel of honor and not of dishonor for this community and for your glory. We pray all these things in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. And if you would please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Off first with our proclamations and presentations, and I would very much like to have come up here with and join me Pastor Thiele, and also members of the Filipino American Cultural Organization. If you could please come up and join me, please. Thank you. This is a proclamation in honor of National Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month 2021. And so I've asked a couple of our organizations of our Asian American Pacific Islander groups who have especially worked in Oceanside for many years to join me on this. We do have other groups, Asian American and Pacific Islander groups in Oceanside. And so this is actually meant to be all-inclusive. I first want to say that I feel very honored and special to have grown up in Oceanside at a time when Oceanside was very much a military town. So I was surrounded by military families on all sides, across the street next door. And at the time, our next door neighbor was going on his third tour of Vietnam. And going to Laurel School and growing up, many of our classmates, my classmates, were children of military, of active duty. And many of them were Filipino American and Samoan and Japanese American and others. And like I said, I feel very, very blessed and fortunate to have grown up in a very diverse, a very patriotic, and a very communities that are very patriotic and also very much committed to service to our community, to our country. And so this proclamation, I think it's the first time we're doing it in Oceanside, comes at a time when there is a lot of negative things happening nationwide. And so for me, it's about celebrating this diversity, these people who have, in fact, been very much part of our American history and its successes, maybe sometimes positive times, and sometimes very negative times, but we are here in Oceanside always supportive of our diversity. So, having said that, I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas in 1978, a joint congressional resolution established Asian Pacific American Heritage Week, with the first 10 days of May chosen to coincide with two important milestones in Asian Pacific American history: the arrival in the United States of the first Japanese immigrants, May 7th, 1843, and contributions of Chinese workers to the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, completed May 10th, 1869. And whereas in 1991, Congress unanimously passed Public Law 102-42 signed by then President George H.W. Bush, expanding the observance to month-long celebrations. Thereafter, in 1992, permanently designating May of each year, now known as Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, honoring the many contributions, accomplishments, and heritage of approximately 24.5 million people of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander heritage in the United States. And whereas AANHPI individuals and communities have endured a long history of injustice in our country, including the Page Act of 1875, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, the incarceration of Japanese American citizens during World War II, the targeting of South Asian Americans, especially those who are Muslim, Hindu, or Sikh, after the national tragedy of 9/11, and most recently, the wave of hate and violence against AANHPI individuals and people based unjustifiably on COVID-19 pandemic hysteria. And whereas in a difficult year of pain and fear, we reflect on the tradition of leadership, resilience, and courage shown by the AANHPI people who helped build, lead, and unite our country throughout history, from laying railroad tracks, tilling fields, running businesses, being scientists and professors, to caring for our loved ones by being doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers, including recently during the COVID-19 pandemic, serving at great risk and much personal and family sacrifice, as well as serving our nation in uniform and in many other professions and as volunteers. And whereas AANHPI people in Oceanside have a long history of service to our city and country, especially serving at our neighboring military installations at Camp Pendleton in San Diego, infusing our community with their many wonderful contributions and cultural activities that add to our city's rich diversity and economic success, celebrated every year through our annual Filipino American Cultural Celebration, annual Samoan Cultural Celebration, and other civic and cultural activities. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Esther Sanchez, on behalf of the City of Oceanside, do proclaim May 2021 as Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the City of Oceanside, and ask all residents to join us in celebrating their history, achievements, and challenges with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities, demonstrating our love, really true love, and support to our fellow Americans who have given and give so much to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And also to Pastor Teely for our Samoan community. And I would like, if you could say a few words.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. My name is Dory Harris, and I'm the current president of the Filipino American Cultural Organization. And next to me is our Vice President, Mary Lou De La Rosa. And she knows more about our program, so I will let her say something. She's the founder.
Well, it's been a great years being in the city of Oceanside that I am the founder of the Filipino Day during the June event. And of course, last year we did not because of pandemic. And now this year, we might not be able to have it, but I think we might be moving to October. So I just want to invite you guys all to make sure. And this is about the Filipino cultural that will share our heritage, share our culture, and educate everyone in all different races. We need to stand to each other and embrace each other's races. Thank you.
I'm blessed to be here tonight to represent Samoan community. I'm ambassador of the First Samoan Full Gospel Pentecostal Church, Oceanside, and a part of North County Pastor Association of Samoan Fellowship. So we are not We are trying to our best to be part of this to help our community in Oceanside support our mayor, our city council, and also our police, because we see what's going on nowadays. So we appreciate for recognizing us tonight, and hope most of someone are looking at tonight. They see us, they will also have a change of heart to make sure they, every time we have some of these, they'll want to be part of this. Thank you very much.
We're going to take a picture. Yeah, we're all smiling, okay? Paint a smile on her. But I just want to say, as you're leaving, we are so lucky, I think, and I said blessed, to have such a diverse community, especially with respect to our Filipino-American community, that really, during this pandemic, we had our nurses and our doctors just in Tri-City here in North County. I just want to say our healthcare workers, through a very, very tough time, I just want to say thank you so much for caring for us through thick and thin and through a very, very scary time. Thank you. And as to the Samoan community, we have one of the largest Samoan communities on the West Coast, and it truly has been an honor to have you in our community, and with especially the patriotism, the military, and also with the idea of service, especially through the ministries, and also through Save Our Streets. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Monse. I'm 17. I go to El Camino High School. I've been a club member for 12 years at the Boys and Girls Club of Oceanside Townside. The thing I like most about the club is the ability to make new friends and meet new people. I also really like the teen group and all the field trips that we go on. It's really great life experiences. My best club memory is being a part of the teen groups and doing arts and crafts. My future plans are to go to college, study business administration, and hopefully get my MBA. I hope to get into art and fashion or media, because media is at the forefront of the world, shaping and influences many people's opinions today. The pandemic has challenged me to be a lot more self-reliant, as we're doing school at home now, so I have to manage my hours a lot more carefully. I've also found a newfound appreciation for things that once used to be monotonous, like going to grocery shopping or going to school. Being a leader means to me to be a positive influence and encourage those around me to reach their fullest potential. One of the biggest issues surrounding teens today is drug usage, self-confidence, and comparison. The club provides youth a better opportunity to see themselves in a positive light. I'm so grateful for the club to have provided me a safe place to be at and meet new friends from all different backgrounds. It's true. Great futures start here.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Monserrate Ayala, who is the Oceanside Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year 2021. And we have her. Isn't she wonderful? We have her by Zoom. Or is she here?
I believe she's actually here.
Oh, well then. Come on down, Monse.
Hi everyone, it's Miss Hillary again. How are you doing? I'm doing great and happy Monday. We've been talking about gratitude, and one thing that I'm really
Sorry about that. And you are Rhonda Wadirama. Yes. Chief Development Officer. Okay, so. Yes, it is. So this is a very, very special certificate of recognition from the City of Oceanside to a young person who really represents all our young folks going through a very, very tough time in COVID, a very, very scary time. And yet, I understand you showed the most courage during this very, very difficult time. And so you were chosen as Youth of the Year, as we all saw on the tape. And I'd like to, I would like to present this on behalf of the City of Oceanside, the City Council of Oceanside, Certificate of Special Recognition. On behalf of the City of Oceanside, I, Mayor Esther Sanchez, congratulate you on being selected as 2021 Youth of the Year by the Oceanside Boys and Girls Club. I applaud your dedication, diligence, and courage in focusing on your education and making our community a better place for everyone to live, especially during the great COVID-19 pandemic that placed our youth and their families at great stress and risk. You have consistently maintained a positive attitude that will influence your life and all your future endeavors. This is a special moment for you to share with your family and friends who are so proud of your accomplishments. Well done. There you go. So would you like to say some words? Looks like that you're not shy. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Montserrat Ayala. As you heard, I'm the Youth of the Year for this year at the Boys and Girls Club. I've been going for 12 years, and it's such an honor to be recognized by the city that I grew up in, a city that I love, and hope to continue, my education and continue meeting all of you wonderful people. It's the first time that I've ever been at the City Council, so you guys made me feel definitely very welcomed, and it's such an honor and blessing to be here. And I'll pass it on to Ms. Rhonda.
Oh, wow, that was great. So you're a senior up to right? And you have been at the Oceanside Boys and Girls Club since you were kindergarten?
Yes, I'm kindergarten.
Wow.
She's a lifer. I want to thank Mayor Sanchez and the City Council for allowing this opportunity. Normally, when we have a Youth of the Year, we have a lot of fanfare and public events, and Montse got a little bit cheated this year because of the pandemic. So we're just incredibly grateful to be able to be here and in person and honor her. She's headed to Miracosta in the fall. She's got a job. She's an outstanding student. She's a natural leader. She's the captain of her volleyball team. She's just fabulous, and we just wish her all the best.
Well, congratulations, Montse, on all of those accomplishments. And we're going to just smile. I gotta smile. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And our last presentation is the Mayor's Business Member Spotlight. And we have, for today, we are honoring Martinez Accounting, owned by Becky Martinez. So we have with us Scott Ashton, the Executive Director for the Chamber. And if I could take it over to Scott Ashton first. And this is all by Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. The Chamber certainly appreciates this opportunity on a quarterly basis to recognize some of the amazing people in our business community. And tonight we're very excited to be able to recognize Becky Martinez. Usually we're recognizing people that business people that we've known for many, many years. But this is an exception as we just got to know Becky earlier this year. As you know, the Chamber was working with the city and administering the small business grant program. And we get to know Becky through that program as she was instrumental in helping many of her clients, small Latino-owned businesses, apply for that grant. And I believe she helped about 7 different small Oceanside businesses apply for and get awarded the small business grant. So she was very instrumental in looking out for her clients at a time when you'd expect business owners just to be really focused on their own survival. That's not what we see in this community. We see our businesses coming together and collaborating and looking out for each other. And Becky was really a shining example of that. So we're really pleased to be able to honor her and recognize her for everything that she's doing for small businesses here in Oceanside.
Thank you, Scott. And now for Becky.
Hello. I just want to thank you, Mayor Sanchez, and I also want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. I'm so nervous for this recognition. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you so much for your service. We rely so much on our small business community. The small business community is the backbone of our economic, of our economy. So thank you so much, especially during this very bad time that was COVID. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on the agenda is our closed session report. Mr. Mullen?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The council met earlier to discuss the status of negotiations with the Oceanside Fire Management Association. As reflected on item 1 of the closed session agenda, the council also met to discuss conference with the legal counsel on existing litigation in the matter of the NRF project owner v. City of Oceanside et al. And there's no action under the Brown Act under either item to report.
Thank you. Next on the agenda are consent calendar items that are items number 4 through 18. I understand the public has requested to pull items number 9, 11, and 15. Do the council members wish to pull anything else from the consent calendar? No? Is there a motion
approval
to?
of balance.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the balance. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. So we go to item number 9, which is approval of a professional service agreement with KTUNA in the amount of $432,355 to complete a project study report and design of the park restrooms for the Buccaneer Beach Park Facilities Project and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement.
Before we get to the public, I do have to do the meeting advisory.
Yes, thank you.
We are excited to offer public participation in person at meetings again. Please bear in mind that the council chambers are open with a limited capacity as per the state's guidelines. We will ensure that all persons who wish to speak on an agenda item will be given an opportunity to speak. The clerk will call speakers by name so that you will know when it is your turn. We respectfully request that you exit the chambers once you are finished commenting on your item to assist us in maintaining capacity restrictions. Please follow the guiding path to enter and exit the meeting. If you require assistance, please let a staff person know. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak on an item, you must have registered to speak with the clerk's office prior to 4:00 p.m. If you are in attendance and wish to speak on an item, please register to speak with one of our staff members in the lobby prior to when public comment is called for the item. If you have material to distribute to the council or to a specific council person, please hand it to me and I will distribute it to the council or that specific council member. So we will go to our only public comment on item number 9, and it's from Sherry Mackin.
Thank you. I'm sorry I cannot use my video as I have low bandwidth and it keeps telling me my computers or internet's unstable, so hence the picture. Anyway, my name is Sherry Mackin. I'm a South Oceanside resident. And with regards to item number 9, I'm concerned about the appearance of a CEQA violation with regards to all the projects proposed for the area. The bike path, the restoration of the creek. We've got possible use of the northern side of the creek area, that little strip of parkland for parking. Now the restrooms and this. Just understanding why we're not looking at this as really one project rather than these little separate projects so that we could truly measure the impacts to the area. Additionally, I do have a question about that area north of the creek. It's a parkland strip, as I stated, where parking lot was proposed. Is that going to be included in the study? I did not see that in the paperwork. Thank you very much.
That concludes the public comment on this item.
Can someone answer that question, staff?
While the staff is approaching, with respect to the issue of CEQA, it's my understanding with this contract that a project study report would be developed so that there could be a project that would be subject to CEQA review. So there will be CEQA review.
Thank you, John. That's correct. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, Brian Thomas, City Engineer. I have with me tonight staff that can address the questions being posed.
Okay.
I'd like to move approval.
Wait, let's.
Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Jonathan Smith. I'm your consultant project manager for this project. It's my pleasure to serve the community by leading this project. And as the city attorney mentioned, CEQA is included in this project, and we are following all requirements of CEQA.
Right. So I think the question had to do with how this is coordinating with the other projects, including the La Salina treatment plant that is going to be retiring soon, and the different pieces, right? So I think those were the questions. Are you the consultant for the entire piece or just this little piece?
So
not little piece, but the restrooms.
One of the, Honorable Mayor, one of the important pieces of this project is community outreach and coordination with all the projects. Each of the projects in the area do have their own schedules and are funded separately that produce those schedules. However, when we're meeting and having these outreach meetings with the public, we're inviting all the project managers from all the projects to address any comments or concerns that are brought up during the meeting on any of the projects to assure the community that they are being coordinated together. And that's going to be my job with this project, to see that that occurs. And while we have, as the staff report shows, 4 outreach meetings and 4 surveys, that I will be going to any other meeting that's for any other project in the area to make sure that the information is conveyed to the public.
Well, I think that's a really good decision by staff to have one consultant for all pieces of the entire project. So when do you imagine the first committee meeting will be, the first outreach will take place?
So the project team is meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing that exact topic. Our goal is to have one before the end of the month. We know how the community has been waiting for this project, so we want to get out there and start communicating with the public and the community and get their input.
Thank you. So that means soon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
So there's a motion by Deputy Mayor Kimes, second by Councilmember Weiss to approve. Let's vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 11 is adoption of a resolution approving final map number T17-00004 for the El Crazon Phase 1 project and authorization for the city clerk to record the final map with the San Diego County Recorder. And we have 2 speakers.
We have 2 speakers on item number 11. Our first speaker is Roger Davenport, to be followed by Cindy Davenport.
And if we could have staff, in case they have questions, near the podium to answer any of the questions. Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Davenport, you're on.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council. I just had a couple of 3 comments in referencing the engineering requirements, paragraph 38 through 50. I wanted to recommend adding a requirement for rainwater collection and storage to provide rainwater for landscape irrigation. The storage system could feed the recycled water system that's already required for distribution, but you could collect the rainwater from the building roof and store enough water to supply all of the landscape watering requirements based on an average rainfall year. Then it would only need to import recycled water from the city, the purple pipe system, during drought years. Finally, it could expel excess water to the stormwater system as already specified to accommodate a 100-year storm event or something. Second, I would like to recommend that requiring that all buildings developed on the property use electric heating and water heating systems. This will reduce pollution and make the buildings safer and less expensive to build and to operate over their lifetimes. It will also help us meet our long-term cap goals for greenhouse gas reduction. And finally, for building owners who insist on having natural gas supplied to their buildings, I think they should be the ones to take full responsibility for liability for any damages resulting from the natural gas lines that would be put on the property for their buildings. They should also be required to offset any ongoing greenhouse gas emissions from their natural gas use via local, that is within Oceanside city limits, tree planting or other carbon negative actions. So that's all I had to say. I just thought thought of those things as I was reading through it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Cindy Davenport. You're on.
Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Cindy Davenport, and I've lived in historic Loma Alta since 2008. Regarding item 11, the El Corazon Phase 1 project and how this is to be developed, I agree with everything Roger said. I would like to add that regarding rainwater harvesting, we speak from experience. Several years ago, we installed 2 cisterns totaling 3,200 gallons. They are filled from the rainwater flowing off of the roofs of our house and garage. Normally, we would use some of it as it fills up, so we were actually capturing more than 3,200 gallons per year. We have cut our water usage and therefore our bill by about 50% or more. Therefore, we save money, and our trees appreciate chlorine-free water for at least half of the year. All new construction should add rainwater harvesting and storage capability. The El Corazon Phase 1 project should require rainwater harvesting as well as using the recycled water from the purple pipes. Our area will be experiencing droughts more and more frequently due to the climate emergency. So if we don't plan now, we all will suffer much more. First of all, any commercial building owner should appreciate money-saving additions to their buildings. Second of all, water should never be simply discarded into the storm drain system without being used even once. Third, harvested rainwater not only waters landscaping, but it also has the possibility of adding to our water table. As you know, the city's water utilities department has started working on Pure Water Oceanside, a forward-thinking project that will purify recycled water to create a new local source of high-quality drinking water that is safe and drought-proof and environmentally sound. By the end of 2021, more than 30% of the city's water supply will be produced this way, by recharging the Mission Basin aquifer. The city's website claims pride in the dedication and foresight of the Water Utilities Department to produce more drinking water for Oceanside in this way. Therefore, we should all be sure to always use our water at least once and let it replenish our aquifer instead of allowing it to run into the sewer, streets, and storm drains. The city should require that any new buildings, especially buildings on its property, should now lead the way in capturing rainwater and replenishing our aquifer. Our climate action plan requires us to conserve water and phase out fossil fuels. Any new buildings in Oceanside should follow the lead of other cities and not allow the installation of natural gas in new buildings or require mitigation of all polluting emissions. So for El Corazon, the heart of the city, let's put our best foot forward and move onward Oceanside with practices that show leadership, help us all stay safe, save money, and save our resources. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comment.
Thank you. And so there were no questions. Thank you, staff, for standing by. I did have some concerns about this item being on here possibly prematurely because we are still discussing the project on item number 20, which is later on in this agenda. So normally the final map language comes at the end of a project, and this is we're still discussing deals. So I'm a little concerned about that. So there is a motion by Councilmember Weiss.
Move approval.
As, to approve, and second by Councilmember Rodriguez. Please vote.
Motion approved, 4-1. Sanchez, no.
Thank you. And last is item number 15 under the consent item calendars, which is approval of the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual action plan of the Consolidated Plan for Housing and Community Development for submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, that's HUD. Authorization for the city manager to submit the plan to HUD for funds under the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership programs. Authorization for the city manager to sign and execute required forms and documents for the grant funds, and authorization for the neighborhood services director to sign agreements with subrecipients.
And we only have one public comment on this, and
Okay.
It's from Sherry Mackin. And Sherry, we need you to unmute.
Thank you. I attended a neighborhood meeting last night where a proposed project on the transit corridor, which is the Coast Highway, was discussed, and I have huge concerns on the abuse used by some to get density bonuses for housing projects that ultimately turn into vacation rentals. Short-term vacation rentals do absolutely nothing to meet our climate action goals or housing mandates. In fact, they keep us from meeting those goals. I understand that in Hallmark's multi-dwelling housing condos, they have a right to lease provision in the CCNRs, and that is the right to lease state respective condominiums shall not be leased for transit uses. However, in the same document, it stated that the provision shall be superseded by and upon the adoption of any citywide short-term rental ordinance. So effectively, since we do not have a ban on short-term vacation rentals in a transit corridor where lots of density bonuses are given, these units can all become short-term vacation rentals. This must stop. I believe that developers should be required or opt to change their CCNRs to strike the reference to the city's short-term vacation rental ordinance if they are using the state density bonus program to provide affordable housing units, or claiming bogus units under the guise of being within a transit corridor or 0.5 miles to a transit stop. It's a no-brainer. Properties in the transit corridor should be deed restricted for residential use only. The developer shouldn't be able to double dip and then point the finger in the other direction at our city. Please quit blaming the state for all the density we are seeing when you have the ability to change policy to protect residential use in transit corridors. And that is create policy that restricts the use of housing in a transit corridor for short-term vacation rentals, especially when the developer gets to build very dense projects or more units using the term, quote, residential, when the units will be used instead as vacation rentals. The Coast Highway and its proximity to the coast lends to the abuse of density for short-term vacation rentals. Let's meet our housing needs in the transit corridors rather than allow unparked, dense projects to be approved under the guise of housing when it's not. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment on this item.
Thank you. I do have a question for staff as to the affordable housing units for the density bonus. Can those also be used for vacation rentals?
Has nothing to do with this item. I thought this item was CDBG.
Councilmember Weiss, I didn't hear. Did you have a comment? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I didn't know what Ms. Mackin's comments have to do with the CDBG program.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, she did bring that up, so could you answer that question at least?
Sure, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I would say to the extent that those units have an affordability agreement that's monitored and managed by the city, I would say no. And I would probably look to Megan to confirm that, but clearly in my mind, that would be.
No, they're not available, right?
No.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
If they have an affordability agreement in place, which affordable units would.
Okay, and have we used CDBG funding for affordable housing projects? Well, it also includes home funds.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Megan on that one.
Okay. Councilmember Weiss brought up a question regarding relevance.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, Megan Crooks with the Neighborhood Services Department. The home funds can be used towards affordable housing projects, and we do have home funds reserved for the notice of funding available for affordable projects that comes forward later in June to the City Council. However, as Mr. Borrego was stating, the regulatory agreements do hold those affordable units to remain affordable for 55 years.
Great, thank you very much. There's a motion by Councilmember Weiss to approve. Second by Councilmember Rodriguez. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. And item number 19 is adoption of a resolution. This is under general items. Adoption of a resolution by the City Council authorizing the execution and delivery of documents related to the sale and delivery of the not-to-exceed $9.5 million water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2021A, and authorizing the execution of certain documents and directing certain actions in connection therewith. Adoption of a resolution by the Oceanside Public Finance Authority authorizing the execution and delivery of a related escrow agreement. Report by Jane McPherson, Financial Services Director.
Good evening,
Ms.
Honorable
McPherson.
Mayor and council members. Tonight, I'm here to present the request for issuance of the City of Oceanside 2021 water revenue refunding bonds. Excuse me. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of documents relating to the sale and delivery of the not-to-exceed 9.5 million water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2021A, and authorizing the execution of certain documents and directing certain actions in connection therewith, and that the Oceanside Public Financing Authority adopt a resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of a related escrow agreement. Tonight, I have here and wanted to introduce our bond counsel and financing team. Carrie Dale, Water Utilities Director, Steve Hodges, Treasury Manager, Jill Moya is not able to be with us tonight, Municipal Advisor Michael Bush from Urban Futures, Bond Counsel Brian Forbath, and underwriter Sarah Oberles Brown, who is available via Zoom. On June 26, 2013, City Council authorized the issuance of water revenue bonds, Series 2013A, with an interest cost of 3.87%. The current interest rate environment allows for an advanced refunding opportunity with an approximately net present value savings of $771,140 or 9.71%. The true interest cost of the 2021 bonds is estimated to be 2.16%, which includes the cost of the underwriter's discount. Currently, in the Water Department, their debt portfolio contains the 2013 water revenue bonds, the 2020 water revenue bonds, which you probably remember from last fall, and then the WIFIA loan agreement that has a maximum loan value of $69 million, maturing in 2056. So this gives you, it's a little hard to tell, but there's some colors that show you the different bonds and when you can see the payments going down after 2032. Preliminary bond pricing, the par value of the bonds will be estimated to be $8.95 million, with total proceeds of approximately $8.72 million after issuance costs of approximately $225,000. The bonds still are going to mature in 2033. There's no change there. Bond true interest cost is estimated at 2.16%. And then Standard & Poor's gave us a AA+, which is excellent, rating with a stable outlook. The annual debt service payments will decrease by an average of $73,000 over the life of the bonds. So this is the schedule. The pricing is going to be done this Tuesday, and then the final closing for the bonds will be on May 25th. Staff recommends that the City Council and the Oceanside Public Financing Authority adopt resolutions authorizing the execution and delivery of documents relating to the sale and delivery of not to exceed 9.5 million, the 2021 water revenue bonds, Series 2021A, and authorizing the execution of certain documents and directing certain actions in connection therewith. I'm available for any questions, and also our consultants are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, and thank you for introducing everybody here. Could you stand just so that, so I'm kind of short and I can't see you all.
This is Michael Bush, Brian Forbath, Steve Hodges is back here. He's our treasury manager. And then Sarah can't stand up, but she's been with San Francisco, so she's
That's why
able-
she can't stand up, okay.
Yeah, I said,
Got it.
why don't you just go on Zoom? It'll be, oh, there she is.
Okay, there you are.
She doesn't have her mute off.
She said she's
okay.
here.
I was going to stand up for you.
Oh, that's excellent.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comments?
No public comment on this item.
Okay, Councilmember Weiss?
Move approval, staff recommendation.
Okay. Second by Deputy Mayor Keim. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you very much. Let's go to item number 21, which is introduction of an ordinance amending Article 2 of Chapter 11 of the Oceanside City Code to regulate outdoor burning and open flames. And we have with us David Parsons, Division Fire Chief. Chief Parsons.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. David Parsons, Division Chief, Community Risk Reduction, and your Fire Marshal. Pleasure to be here tonight. Introducing an ordinance for amendment of the California Fire Code as adopted by the City of Oceanside to regulate outdoor burning and open flames. So as background, in December of 2019, we adopted the California Fire Code with local amendments. We are allowed to modify the fire code based on local climatic, topographical, and conditions of the fuel in the city of Oceanside. So as part of that, we introduce amendments that are unique to our community and problems that we have. In 2020, we had 443 total fires. 187 of those were vegetation fires, and 103 of those vegetation fires were linked to homeless activity. The fire department frequently contacts individuals maintaining fires on public land. The fire department has responded to numerous fires that spread to vegetation and combustible construction. In the state of California, we had a record year in 2020 for cost and acres burned due to wildland fires. And this is actually by quite a large amount. 2 times, 100% increase on the number of acres burned, $2 billion in fire suppression costs, and $10 billion in damages from fires. The language in the Oceanside City Code, which is the adoption of the fire code, has been modified to include a blanket prohibition of each respective fire type on public property and private property without the express consent of the owner. Some of the exceptions that we have listed in the proposed ordinance is fires within grates at campgrounds, fires within beach rings, and official activities of law enforcement or fire department employees. The revised language also allows for fires when a fire permit has been issued, which is something we've already done from the past. Fire chief or designee, and in my case, I'm the designee as the fire marshal, we issue permits on a regular basis for things like agricultural burns, pit barbecues, and bonfires, although very rarely on the bonfires. Enforcement will be handled, as in the past, by the police department, the fire department, and code enforcement department. In closing, staff recommends that the City Council introduce an ordinance amending Article 2 of Chapter 11 of the Oceanside City Code to regulate outdoor burning and open flames, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, so a question with respect to our Parks and Rec, park facilities. We do have little fire pits at several of them. Those will still continue to be allowed.
That's correct. Anything that was city approved will continue as allowed. The main, as you know, what we're trying to address here, the main issue is public safety. We did everything we could. We narrowed down some of the gray area to continue for the public and private residents and owners of private properties to do the things that we all like to do as citizens in the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any public comments?
No public comment on this item.
Thank you. Back to the council. Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Keim, second by Councilmember Corey Jensen. I apologize. My brain was already moving to the next item. Sorry. Let's vote.
I need to title, Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is the introduction of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending Article 2 of Chapter 11 of the Oceanside City Code to regulate outdoor burning in open flames.
Thank you. Let's vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Next item, let's take up item number 22, which is approval of a memorandum of understanding and license agreement with the North County Transit District regarding city use of property owned by the North County Transit District located on the west side of Broadway Street between Morse Street and Cassidy Street, and authorization for the city manager to execute all related documents. And we have a report by Jonathan Borrego, Deputy City Manager, Development Services Director.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. This evening, staff recommends that the City Council approve a memorandum of understanding and license agreement with the North County Transit District regarding city use of property located on the west side of Broadway Street between Morse and Cassidy, and authorize the city manager to execute all related documents. Last year, NCTD completed a trespasser risk assessment study that evaluated the incidence of railroad right-of-way trespassing within the cities of Oceanside, Encinitas, and Del Mar. The study recommended various options to reduce trespassing in these cities, including the installation of barrier fencing. NCTD's proposed fencing plan for Oceanside includes the installation of 6-foot-high black vinyl-coated chain-link fencing on the east and west sides of the railroad right-of-way, generally between Morse Street to the north and Buena Vista Lagoon to the south. The next couple of slides are going to depict the fence line as was originally proposed by NCTD, and in subsequent slides I'll show you images of the revised fence line based on the community response that we received. So as you can see, this intersection here is the terminus of Morse and Morse at the intersection of Broadway. And as you can see, the original fencing line within the right-of-way, which is depicted in that red line that cuts across the vacant lot there next to the railroad tracks, that was the original fence line. That red line actually depicts the boundary between the city's right-of-way and NCTD's right-of-way. The city's right-of-way actually encroaches about 20 feet behind the curb on Broadway. So the fence was originally proposed at that location. This next slide is just a little bit further south, as you can see, as the fence was originally proposed to abut against Lyons Park. Prior to NCTD's final approval of the fencing plan, staff was contacted by a South Oceanside resident expressing interest in a modified plan. The modified plan would allow for additional parking along Broadway Street between Morse and Cassidy Street, and would also include additional parking on Myers Street and a beach access trail from Morse Street. And I'll be showing those images in just a minute. City staff discussed the proposed modifications with NCTD, who expressed a willingness to relocate the proposed fencing, subject to the city agreeing to accept maintenance and liability for those portions of the right-of-way that the city would like to improve. The recommended memorandum of understanding before you tonight and license agreement would address the portion of the NCT right-of-way along Broadway Street between Morse Street and to the north and Lyons Park to the south. Potential future improvements along Myers Street and trail improvements at Morse would be subject to future agreement. These next couple of slides actually depict the revised fencing plan. So if you take a look at this image, the red line across what would be the eastern portion is the original fence line. The blue line, which is closer to the railroad tracks, reflects the new fence line. And as you can see, it picks up quite a bit of additional right-of-way that could be used for a potential of, for a wide array of different potential public uses, which I'll be talking about in a minute here. One area that I wanted to point out as well is, I'm going to kind of move over to the mouse pad here. Oh, I guess the mouse isn't working here. But I guess you can see the area which we call the BMX track area, which is kind of, you can kind of see it on the slide here, which is the area that has the dirt trails near Moore Street there. So that's the area that we're referring to as the BMX track area. During our discussions with the community, there was quite a bit of expressed interest to maintain that area as it is a public amenity. We did work out some agreements and some language in the agreements that provides the city a shield from liability for public use of that space as a recreational amenity. So that area is included. The area just to the north of that, which is kind of off in the direction to the left here on that slide, where you can kind of see where the path runs down right to the railroad tracks, that area is an area that would be explored as a future use. If you can imagine a line going north there, which again would be to the left, that would be the future potential trail connection to the beach undercrossing that pops out near the lagoon, or near the creek, I'm sorry. And so that would be the location for the potential future trail. This is a view going a little bit further south, and as you can see, as proposed, the blue fence line would intersect with the fence line at Lyons Park. The potential future design of the area could include various improvements, including parking, a potential expansion of Lyons Park, and even a walking trail. As you can see in those previous slides, there's quite a bit of right-of-way to work with. The proposed fiscal 21-22 capital improvement program includes a line item for the design work for that space in the amount of $350,000. Before embarking on any final plans, we do plan on soliciting neighborhood feedback. I do know in conversations and contacts that I've had in the past few months that there are some people, while there's plenty of supporters for additional parking, I have heard some residents in the area that also have concerns about a parking lot in that area. So our goal is to engage the community and address any concerns that might be out there. With respect to parking, I can say that some of the concerns have related to some of the oversized vehicle parking that already exists in the area, and if there's opportunities to have more of that in the area, then certainly the community may not be interested in that. But by the same token, there are actually ways to restrict that within any future parking area. So those are the types of issues that we would like to address, and then also to gather community input in terms of what we would like to do with the balance of the space, because clearly there's enough room to do more with that area than just parking alone, whether it's, as I mentioned, an extension of the park or even a trail. And I would envision that probably along the most western area of that space, where there already is kind of a de facto walking trail in that area, but there should be plenty of room. And so we will be engaging the public in that process to come up with ideas and then also address any potential community concerns. As I mentioned earlier, the trail connection at Moore Street and then the future area along Myers Street would be subject to future agreements. Those two projects are more long-term in nature. The area along Myers Street would require a potential relocation of the coastal rail trail in that area. There is actually a need, coincidentally, to widen that trail to its full width. And I know that our traffic engineering staff is actively looking at grants to widen that trail. And as part of that work, we would have the opportunity perhaps to also do some other improvements as have been suggested by the community. So with that, staff recommends that the City Council approve the attached memorandum of understanding and license agreement with the North County Transit District regarding the city use of property located on the west side of Broadway between Morse and Cassidy, and authorize the city manager to execute all related documents. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Borrego. Do we have any comments by the public?
We have 3 members of the public that wish to speak on this item. Our first public comment is from Sherry Mackin, to be followed by Richard Fox, to be followed by Maggie Dalrymple. And we got Mrs. Mackin, and you're on.
Thank you. I'd like to thank staff for the work on this project, and I wholeheartedly support staff's recommendation to enter into a MOU with North County Transit District for the property east of the tracks that borders Broadway Street. The open space is widely used by the neighborhood, especially those who live in multi-dwelling units, for walks and recreation. Kids use the BMX trails every day after school and on weekends. It's a highly used area. In addition, the additional parking will serve the need for both residents and businesses alike. As the daughter of an insurance adjuster, I ask that you think safety first and beach access second, and assume responsibility for the use of the footpath from Morris Street to the Loma Alta Creek path, which we all know eventually leads you to Buccaneer Beach. The ocean is such a draw for people that I'm very concerned that once the tracks are fenced off and people no longer have access to get to the beach at Moore Street, kids will jump the fence and the tracks rather than take a safer route to the beach along a much needed walking path adjacent to the rail line. Thank you for the consideration, and I would appreciate the approval.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Richard Fox. Mr. Fox, you're on.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'd just like you to support the staff's recommendation, and we in South Oceanside approve of the staff's recommendation and love it. Some of the community ideas were to add the diagonal parking, lead the BMX trail, and add the foot trail along the rail to the Loma Alta Creek for beach access. And this will help for safety of people and help people from jumping the fences and crossing the tracks. So I appreciate all the hard work also that staff has done on this, and we're happy with the recommendations. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Maggie Dalrymple. If you could unmute yourself, Maggie Dalrymple. Are you unmuted?
Hello?
Hello. Yes, you're on.
Well, I am Honorable Mayor and City Council. Well, I'm encouraged that the City Council will be taking ownership of the property between Cassidy and Morris Street. I'm highly concerned about the staff and the what I feel is a fragmented approach to addressing this property. I feel like, there's a lot of different community members who have reached out to the staff with actually no response from them, and that the staff hasn't addressed, and especially in this memorandum, they haven't addressed a lot of very valid concerns from the community, including that there's no access and no sidewalks, no handicap access. What would the stormwater pollution impact be if they added parking to the Loma Alta Creek? And if things were to be expanded, how would this affect the Buena Vista Lagoon? And what is the tie-in to future and bigger projects? So while I'm encouraged that the city is going to take ownership for this property and the liability and maintenance, I am discouraged by the outreach from the city staff at this point. And I want to make sure that Oceanside has an opportunity to do something great here, and that we don't just do something that's suggested by one resident when it affects all the residents and all of the visitors that come to Oceanside. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comment.
Thank you. And no one from in the room, right?
There are no in-person speakers on
thank
this
you.
item.
I do want to report that I am the NCTD representative for the city of Oceanside, and I believe Deputy Mayor Keim is the alternate. And I saw that this was coming, this was going to be on an agenda, upcoming agenda, this idea of fencing all the way from Del Mar through Oceanside. And I had noticed in the paper that the cities of Del Mar and Encinitas were having some concerns about where the fencing was going to be. And so I was able to reach out to some community members, and I want to thank Sherry Mackin, who actually put a meeting together. She, without any kind of premature ideas, she put together business members and neighbors. And thank you very much, Mr. Borrego, for being present. And so there were ideas that were brought up about being able to use this land for the public and public uses and amenities. So I want to thank you, Mr. Borrego, for having listened to the community. I heard you this evening say that there is going to be further outreach. So as to the Ms. Dalrymple, I think that should satisfy her that there is going to be more additional outreach. But to include, I hope, looking at pursuing possibly a beach access, because it sounds like a lot of the kids use that. And let me tell you, other places that there's fencing, cutting the fencing is not a hard thing to do. But I just wanted to report to my fellow council members that I actually had to. I was asked to declare a conflict, whether it be here or at NCTD, and I actually never made it to a closed session at NCTD because their closed session came on so late, I had to get to another meeting. So I can report tonight about this. So I'm going to go ahead and move approval. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay, there's a motion and a second by Councilmember Jensen. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, let's get to our public hearing item, which is item number 23. It is 5 minutes after 6. Number 23 is approval of the third substantial amendment to the 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan and authorization to submit the amendment to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, authorization for the city manager to submit the revised annual action plan to HUD for funds under the Community Development Block Grant Program, authorization for the city manager to sign and execute required forms and documents for the grant funds, and authorization for the Neighborhood Services Director to sign agreements with sub-recipients. I'd like to go ahead and open this public hearing at this time and request disclosure of council members and constituent contacts and correspondence.
Staff.
Staff. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to, Mr. Navarro, do we have any correspondence and or petitions?
All correspondence has been forwarded to the council prior to the meeting.
Thank you very much. We'd like to start the testimony, beginning with Cecilia Barandiaran. Close, right? Management analyst. I'm going to get it one of these days.
You're doing well. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. We're here tonight to go over the third amendment to the 2019-20 Action Plan, authorize the submission of this plan to HUD, authorize the city manager to sign all required forms, and authorize the Neighborhood Services Director to sign all the agreements with the subrecipients. Back in June of last year, we had the first amendment to last year's plan. That was to basically receive the first CDBG-CV allocation of 788. With that plan, we outlined various activities, and then we came back to you at January of this year to do the second amendment. We received a second allocation of over 1.2 million, and then to again do activities. We're coming back to you for Amendment 3 to this plan. We have some programs and activities. In the round one, just to kind of reiterate for everybody, we had funded some food distribution, hotel motel vouchers, emergency rental assistance, utility, and senior meals. All those programs were completed. They were done. With the round two money, we came back to you in January to put in an additional $300,000 for emergency rental assistance. That need was still very significant. Put some money aside for COVID-19 admin, some money for nonprofit COVID-19 related assistance, some money for additional family food distributions, hotel motel vouchers, hot meals, eviction and tenant landlord assistance, and then also some Wi-Fi developments. As we have gone through it the last couple of months, we did not utilize all the money from the nonprofit assistance, and we did not have any applicants for the tenant landlord. So we are asking council to reallocate that remaining amount of money, which is $237,138, to the emergency rental assistance. Why is that need so important? We are still funding applications. The allocation that we had previously received of about $200,000 or $300,000 is almost fully allocated, or will be shortly. And we still have applicants that are waiting for assistance that we are processing and working on. Again, for CDBG, it has to be connected to the prevention, preparedness, and/or response to COVID-19. Unfortunately, this pandemic has been of such a duration that people today are still being impacted, and they still need this rental assistance. We have received 94 applications total. Out of those 94, we have deactivated 15, either because they're over income, they went to the county for assistance, or they were non-responsive. We are still processing over 40, or we've processed over 40, and we're finalizing the remaining 39. We need the additional funding of the 254,081. Excuse me, let me clarify. We've actually spent down so far about almost $300,000 in rent and utility assistance. And so we're providing up to 3 months of rental arrears. As of the last report that we received from the county, the county's rental assistance program had assisted or was assisting close to 700 Oceanside residents. We haven't received a recent update on that. And so again, we're here to reappropriate or ask to reappropriate the unused balance for CDBG CFE from those two areas to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program so that we can assist the remaining balance of the reports. And this will be presented to the Housing Commission at the May 25th meeting. Again, staff recommends that the City Council approve this third amendment, authorize the submission of this plan, authorize the city manager to sign all required forms, and authorize the Neighbor Services Director to sign all agreements with subrecipients. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Barandiaran. The more I say it, hopefully I get better. Okay.
Barandiaran.
Thank you.
Está bien.
Gracias. So this is a public hearing. Public does have a right to speak on this item. You have up to 3 minutes. If you do wish to speak, please come up to one of the podiums. I see no one rising. Do we have any public comments from Zoom that wish to speak by Zoom?
We have no public comment on Zoom that was registered before the deadline of 4 o'clock.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and close this portion of the public hearing. And Councilmember Rodriguez?
I'm really happy to see this item come back. I know in our discussions, the rental assistance for our residents was a high priority, and staff said if funds weren't used, they'd come back, and you have. And so I'm very appreciative of that and all your hard work in processing these applications. So I'd like to move approval of staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Second by Councilmember Weiss. Any other comments? No, please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you very much. We're going to go back to the last general item, which would be item number 20. We do have several speakers on this item. How many do we have?
We have 14 speakers that are registered on Zoom.
Okay, 14 speakers. And do we have any, in addition, who are present?
I believe we have 1 or 2 that are in person.
Okay, is there any wish to take a break before we start? I see, okay. Doesn't look like it, so we're going to go ahead and get started with item number 20, and that is approval of actions necessary to implement the 2013 disposition and development agreement between the City of Oceanside, which is a city, and Sudbury Development, Inc., governing the El Corazon specific plan area, including number one, two purchase and sale agreements between the city and El Corazon MXD LLC and Oceanside Arena Holdings LLC, referred to Oceanside Arena, for the disposition of commercial property for the development of a mixed-use project and an arena project. And number two, a ground lease between the city and Oceanside Arena for the lease of recreational land for parking for the arena and for the public. And finally, number three, a consent to sublease agreement between SoCal SCLP and Oceanside Arena to sublease ancillary parking. We have a report by Vicky Gutierrez, Real Estate Manager. Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Vicky Gutierrez. I'm the Real Estate Manager for the Public Works Department. And I'm going to just jump right into this item for you. So we are asking staff recommends the City Council take actions necessary for the disposition of two parcels of commercial land, ground lease of a recreational parcel of land, and consent to sublease of parking area within the SoCal Sports Complex. All parcels are located within the El Corazon specific plan area. Excuse me. The parcels are subject to two existing disposition and development agreements with Sudbury Development, Inc., unanimously approved by City Council in 2013. The DDAs establish the terms of Sudbury's development and acquisition of certain portions of the land in El Corazon. The requested actions are further described as follows. Approval of a purchase and sale agreement with El Corazon Mixed for a 12.09 acre parcel in the Village Commercial Designated Land Area to accommodate a 268 mixed-use apartment complex with approximately 4,464 square feet for lease commercial space at a purchase price described in the commercial DDA. Also approval of a purchase and sale agreement with Oceanside Arena Holdings LLC for disposition of 5.24 acre parcel of Village Commercial Designated Land as well, for the development of a 7,500 seat indoor arena at a purchase price described in the commercial DDA. Provided that Oceanside Arena Holdings develops two multi-purpose sports fields within the future Park Site 1, or they pay an in-lieu fee to an equivalent in-lieu fee, and I'll touch on that later in my presentation. Approval of a ground lease agreement with Oceanside Arena Holdings for lease of 7.2 acre parcel in recreational designated land for use as primary arena parking lot for the term of 65 years with 3 options of 10 years extensions, including development of a 638 parking space parking lot with 150 city exclusive use parking spaces, 100 arena exclusive spaces, and a remaining 388 shared parking spaces. So we're asking approval of a consent to sublease agreement between SoCal and Oceanside Arena Holdings for sublease of the parking lot at the existing SoCal Sports Complex, and that would be used as an ancillary parking for the proposed arena. We authorize budget appropriations in an amount not to exceed $20,000 for closing costs applicable to the sale of the property, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreements along with the respective documents, the city manager's signature that may be necessary to close escrow for the sale and to enter into the agreements upon receipt of the documents, and authorize the city manager to carry out the terms of the purchase and sale agreement and close escrow for the disposition of the real properties. So a lot of things that we're asking for tonight. The background on this is on June 3rd of 2009, City Council approved the El Corazon specific plan, and it governs the development of the 465 acre El Corazon site. In January of 2013, City Council unanimously approved the 2 DDAs with Sudbury Development, and we refer to those throughout my presentation as the commercial DDA and the recreational DDA. These DDAs establish the terms under which certain portions of the land at El Corazon may be developed and acquired by Sudbury through lease or purchase. The recreational DDA allows for development and lease of a portion of the El Corazon recreational designated land. So actions approved at That time included a lease with SoCal SCLP for the development of the SoCal soccer complex that exists there today. The SoCal lease expires October 31st of 2039. It has 2 10-year options to extend. If exercised, that would go out to October 31st of 2059. And then upon expiration of the lease, the land reverts back to the city. The commercial DDA allows for development of the Village Commercial Area, Oceanside Boulevard area, and the hotel designated land areas of El Corazon. Sudbury fulfilled the recreational DDA requirements in 2014. At this time, Sudbury is proposing to proceed with portions of the commercial development at El Corazon. More background for you. In December of 2019, Sudbury submitted a request to purchase and fee the arena parcel and the residential parcel, and to enter into a ground lease for land to be developed for the parking lot that will serve as the primary parking for the arena project. The parking lot will also serve as the parking area for the future Parkside 1 as envisioned in our specific plan. Sudbury is also requesting the city's consent to enter into a sublease agreement for the SoCal parking lot to serve as the ancillary parking lot for the arena, an overflow lot, if you will. The existing SoCal parking lot will be used on an as-needed basis by the arena and to satisfy the arena's parking requirements. The commercial DDA provides that Sudbury may ground lease or purchase portions of the commercial premises, so subject to certain conditions. The DDA further states preference for Sudbury to enter into ground lease rather than a purchase and fee for the commercial premises. However, it also provides that commercial DDA provides that Sudbury has a right to purchase as opposed to ground lease under certain conditions. To do so, Sudbury must demonstrate that the ground lease of the development site would be economically disadvantageous to them, and that term is defined in the DDA. The term economically disadvantageous applies if it is determined that the following: commercial tenants or users for the proposed development would be unwilling to enter into long-term ground lease agreements, or if the ability to procure institutional financing utilizing a ground lease is diminished, or financing terms provided are material less favorable to Sudbury for a development on a ground lease as opposed to a fee purchase. So the commercial DDA sets forth a process for determining whether a lease would be considered economically disadvantageous. And per the DDA, if one of the pre-approved qualified financial experts determines that a lease is disadvantageous, economically disadvantageous, then Sudbury has the option of purchasing the designated land, and as opposed to leasing it. Sudbury does not have the right to purchase any recreational land, and they are not requesting to do so at this time. Sudbury went on to provide letters from JLL, which is one of the approved experts within the DDA. These letters conclude that it would be economically disadvantageous to ground lease the commercial premises for both parcels, both the arena and the residential parcel. And per the DDA, the determination by these pre-approved experts is final. Therefore, the city can't require that Sudbury lease the arena and mixed-use residential development parcels due to this expert determination. The commercial DDA provides that the ground lease rent and the purchase price for the commercial premises is determined by utilizing a land valuation formula that is defined in the DDA. The land valuation price is determined, it's by computing the target return on cost that is no less than 10.5% in order to compute the land residual value. The return on cost is calculated by dividing the net operating income from the project by the total project costs. So if the land residual value is less than 10.5%, then no rent or value is applicable in order to calculate the land residual value. In order to calculate the land residual value, Sudbury is required to submit detailed pro formas for each project for further review. I'm going to go through a couple pictures just to kind of give you an idea of where these are located. This is the El Corazon specific plan area, and right smack in the middle is the existing SoCal sports complex. And then the areas that I'm going to describe are kind of surrounding that area. This is also the specific plan area, but this is within our specific plan. You would find it, and The areas that I'm talking about for purchase tonight are the orange areas, the village commercial area. So the I'll say rectangular longer piece is where the residential parcel is, and right adjacent to the triangle piece is the arena location, and they are in village commercial land. This layout shows you the arena parking lot, the Arena Calafina, which is the furthest to the east side. Adjacent to that is the primary parking lot, and down below is the SoCal overflow parking lot. That kind of gives you an idea that I'm going to further describe these terms as I go. So to summarize, these previously approved commercial DDAs established a formula for determining the price of the parcels. Sudbury and its assignees are not achieving the return on cost formula set forth in the commercial DDA. Therefore, no purchase price is applicable for these parcels. The total consideration the city will receive as a result of the 4 agreements is substantial, and I'd like to share those with you. The construction of a parking facility for Parksite 1 and the arena valued at approximately $5.5 million. It would be developed pursuant to the specific plan requirements. Second, the annual rent and maintenance expenses for the parking lot are valued at an estimated $450,000 to the city. Property and sales tax revenues estimated at $534,000 to the city annually. We will be receiving a completion guarantee obligating Sudbury for the construction of the 2 multipurpose fields for the Parksite 1 location, or an in lieu fee instead of construction for that secure. If we get grant funding, we would choose the in lieu fee option. I'll touch on that later. A completion guarantee to construct the multipurpose arena is also being provided for this to allow for that acquisition. So the following is a summary of all the parcels and requested to be purchased and ground leased. So I'm just going to jump through each one of those. The first one I'm going to talk about is the residential parcel. The buyer is El Corazon MXD LLC, 12.09 parcel, 268 unit mixed use market rate apartments, no purchase price. The regulatory approvals were obtained. The El Corazon Standing Committee recommended approval of this project on March 10th of 2021, and the Planning Commission approved the development project on April 19th of 2021. The next item would be the arena parcel, and the buyer is an entity, Oceanside Arena Holdings LLC, and Sudbury is a member, managing member of that entity. It's a 5.24 acre parcel in the village commercial land area. It's a multi-purpose sports arena and event facility with indoor seating to accommodate up to 7,500 people. The regulatory approvals by the El Corazon Standing Committee recommended approval of the arena project on January 28th of 2021, and the Planning Commission approved the project on February 22nd of 2021. The next time I'm going to continue with the arena because there's a lot on this one. Some of the conditions precedent to closing this entity is the development of the multi-purpose sports fields within Parksite 1, or they pay an in lieu fee of equivalent value. And so I'm going to explain these. There's an option A is Sudbury, or the Arena Holdings, develops 2 multi-purpose fields at prevailing wages, sited on 4 acres within Parksite 1. The city is required to provide topsoil, grading, a water source, and electricity to the site. The estimated value, or the estimated cost, is $92,200. We also have in-kind contributions from Moody's and Agri-Service based on the agreements that we already have in place with them that assists in paying the additional costs relative to this. Buyer would develop the fields and turn them over to the city within 5 months from development upon stabilization of the fields. And substantial completion would occur within 6 months from issuance of a temporary C of O or a C of O, whichever comes first. And the option B is that the buyer would instead pay the city an in lieu fee for completion of the fields, and that amount is to be determined. We are going to do bids for that, and it would be paid over a 6-month period. If the city gets grant funding for Parksite 1, then option B would be the contender, because we would finish out Parksite 1 as proposed within the grant funding request. So I'm going to talk now about the ground lease for the arena primary parking in Parkside 1. This is with Oceanside Arena Holdings. It's a 7.20 acre parcel of recreational land. And again, this is for a ground lease. And it's the primary parking lot for the arena and the future Parkside 1. The allocation of parking spaces within Parkside 1 parking lot would be 638 total parking. We need a minimum of 450 is required for the future Parkside 1 per the LCOR's on specific plan. 100 of the spaces are arena exclusive spaces. 150 are city exclusive spaces, and those would be available for park users, but they may also be used by the arena if it's first approved by the city. So they have to request that. And there's a remaining 388 arena parking spaces, and those are used by the arena only during arena events, and they're available to the public when they're not in use by the arena. So the term of the ground lease that we are proposing is 65 years with 3 10-year options. It brings it, if they're exercised, to a total of 95 years. The percentage rent is a 10% of gross revenue. That rent will be deferred for 18 months from the date of the first arena event. Additional rent that was being required for this ground lease is that the lessee will also pay additional rent revenue based on a per ticket sold basis of 50 cents per ticket sold initially, and paid by the city up to an annual maximum of $150,000 initially. That is being deferred for 42 months from the date of the first arena event, and then it would start being paid. The rent is paid quarterly in arrears, and there will be increases to the $150,000 initial base total revenue and also to the 50 cent per ticket amount. And the increases are 5% in year 6 and every 5 years thereafter. And I want to reiterate the development costs for the parking lot are paid by the lessee, and it's estimated at $5,500,000. Annual maintenance and operating costs are also borne by the lessee, and that's estimated initially at $201,600. Next item is consent to sublease. So the lessor for the SoCal Sports Complex is SoCal SC. The sublessor would be Oceanside Arena Holdings, the arena entity, and they would sublease the parking area of the SoCal Sports Complex for the arena needs. This term would be coterminous with the SoCal lease between the city and SoCal. It expires in October 31st of 2039, and it does have 2 10-year options, which take it out to 2059. And again, the use is ancillary parking to satisfy a portion of the parking requirements for the arena. Also, upon termination of the SoCal Sports Fields lease, which again, it wouldn't occur any later than 2059, parking area becomes part of the ground lease agreement premises in order to continue to satisfy the arena's parking requirements as needed. That percentage rent that will be earned on that project is 10% of gross revenues. That's paid to the city. That will be deferred for 18 months from the date of the first arena event as well. It's paid quarterly in arrears to the city. And I just want to note that the SoCal lease premises, and it includes the soccer fields and the arena, revert back to the city at the end of the term, no later than 2059. So the city may use and schedule usage for the community at the city's discretion, but subject to the ground lease on an as-needed basis. The city has commissioned Kaiser Marston Associates to independently evaluate Sudbury's proposals to ensure compliance within the DDA. It included determination of land value, if any, and what Sudbury can expect to pay per the DDA, potential ground leases versus fee purchase, and preparation of a secondary benefits analysis of the arena and the mixed-use residential projects. Sudbury submitted pro formas to KMA for each of the proposed projects, demonstrating that the DDA specified 10.5% return on cost has not been met for the arena and the residential parcels. Therefore, no land value for the ground lease or ground lease rent may be calculated or assessed for these portions of the commercial premises. The estimated return on costs that were calculated for the arena project is 6.2%. by KMA, and for the residential project, the return on cost was 6.1%. For the arena parcels, Sudbury entered into a joint venture agreement with Infinity Arena Group LLC to form Oceanside Arena Holdings. The arena will serve as a multi-purpose indoor sports arena and event facility. It'll be used for concerts, other sports events, and related activities to be enjoyed by the public. And the San Diego Sockers will be using the arena as its team's home base. As far as the residential parcels, Sudbury plans to own and manage the apartment community and commercial space under the entity El Corazon Mixed LLC. So the economic benefits to the city, $984,000 would be generated annually resulting from the arena and mixed-use residential projects, including parking areas. This includes annual tax revenue to the city. $5.5 million in value related to the construction costs for the primary parking lot to be developed by the buyer. And then KMA estimates construction from the arena and mixed-use residential projects will generate the following: $39.9 million in economic output, $205.3 million in one-time direct and indirect economic output, $79.4 million in one-time construction payroll, and it will have 1,305 construction-related jobs captured within the San Diego County. KMA estimates annual recurring income from operations of the arena and the residential projects will generate $39.9 million in economic output, $15.2 million in annual payroll, and 263 full-time equivalent employees within the county. So staff recommends approval of the purchase and sale agreement for both the El Corazon Mixed project, for the purchase and sale agreement with Oceanside Arena for the disposition of the 5.2-acre village commercial parcel for the arena, approval of the ground lease agreement with Oceanside Arena Holdings for lease of the 7.20-acre parcel for the primary parking lot, approval of the consent to sublease agreement with SoCal for the overflow parking lot, authorize budget appropriations of $20,000, authorize the city manager to execute the agreements along with any respective documents, and authorize the city manager or her designees to carry out the terms of the purchase and sale agreement and close escrow for the disposition of the real properties. So that concludes my presentation. I am available to answer any questions that you may have. I also want to point out that we have Paul Morrow with KMA, with Kaiser Marston Associates here tonight to answer any questions. We also have Colton Sudbury with Sudbury Development to answer any questions you may have for him as well. Thank you.
Before we go to the public, you went over all the potential revenue. What about the impacts, the economic impacts, environmental impacts? That's not something that we've been presented yet.
The environmental impacts to the project, we estimate that the revenues generated will cover, when you say the environmental impacts, do you mean the impacts related to police and fire, those types of impacts, or which impacts?
Traffic, parking,
yes.
Congestion. As we know, residential doesn't ever pay for itself. So all of those costs, because you're presenting the potential pluses of this project, but you haven't yet presented the potential impacts.
We haven't analyzed all those impacts directly. However, we anticipate that for police and fire, the incomes that are generated will cover the project. We are developing a transportation management and demand plan with the buyers and with the ground lease people and the arena holders. So we are developing a plan, staff is doing that, so that we have everything accounted for within that plan to take care of any traffic impacts, so that there wouldn't be multiple projects. We're going to coordinate so that there aren't multiple events going on at the same time, so that there's enough parking and that traffic is handled as well.
And will the city have access to using the arena at all?
To the arena itself?
Yes.
That's not incorporated into the agreement.
Right. Thank you. We have public comments.
Yes, we do. We have 14 speakers. Our first speaker is Diane Nygaard, to be followed by Joan Bachman, to be followed by Chris Gorman. And we have Mrs. Nygaard on the line right now.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Diane Nygaard, and I'm one of 3 speakers tonight representing Friends of El Corazon. Some of us have already spent 20 years working on this vision for El Corazon, a park in the heart of Oceanside. None of us would have wanted any of this land to be sold, but we understand the terms of the agreement that was signed years ago and that this is in compliance with those conditions. One of the key parts of our vision for the park was the grand promenade and the connections between key elements of the park that create a sense of place. Connections that tell us that we're in a park, that this is an exciting, vibrant place we want to be, with wide pedestrian bicycle paths, landscaping, benches, colorful banners. These pedestrian connections that entice people to move around the park, to spend time here, to visit the commercial facilities and help make them economically viable. We very much appreciate that Sudbury, the master developer of this project, has worked with us throughout this entire process. They have said for some time that they're willing to get started with the Grand Promenade, but our city just has not required that with any of the project approvals to date. Again, it was not included with the staff report for this land lease sale. It sounds like, from what we understand with talking with all the participants, everyone is now in agreement that this first piece of the Grand Promenade could move forward tonight with the key locations planted with trees. But staff needs your direction to make that happen. That needs to specifically get included as a key part of your actions tonight. So that's what we're asking for. Direct staff to create the first part of the Grand Promenade so that it gets built as part of this land lease sales agreement that you're approving tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Joan Bachman, to be followed by Chris Gorman, to be followed by Mayra Medina. Joan, you're on.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and Council members, Joan Bachman, President of Friends of El Corazon. We're thrilled with each step that moves our El Corazon Park forward. Unfortunately, almost all of the recent actions have been about buildings and loss of acreage and parking lots, rather than focused on the actual park uses. We need for you to think of this as a 100-year park. Imagine putting a value on the land at New York Central Park 100 years ago. They would have had a very low number. And I think that's where we're at today, unfortunately. So please think of this park as our 100-year park and beyond. We need to think bigger so that all of the elements are in place to ensure the long-term success of the park. So specifically, please direct staff to return with the following plans. We sent you an email that had these 4 plans in it, or this request specifically. Staff did respond to it. We read that, and we still think you need to direct staff to come back with these plans. So I'm going to list off the 4 that we would like to have staff come back with. Number 1, dedicate all of the remaining parkland so the public is ensured there's a real commitment to the park. Develop a plan. Number 2, develop a plan to complete all of the pedestrian bicycle connections that are essential to create a sense of place and entice visitors to explore the entire park. We have a problem with only focusing on the building or the parking lot. We're never looking at the entire park. So please look at the entire park. Number 3, prepare an update to the revenue plan for the entire park that accounts for the long-term loss of lease income and provides a balanced plan without undue burden on the taxpayers of Oceanside. This must include our raising park impact fees. As you know, we're lower than all other cities on that. And again, it needs to be about the entire park. You've done 2 or 3 studies of revenue, but they're always about the building and the parking lot and just one narrow thing. We need the entire park. And number 4, develop a parking plan that does not leave us with a huge dirt parking lot that is not in compliance with the specific plan. Yes, they're going to improve Park 1 parking lot, which was expanded, and we're thankful for that. But the SoCal parking lot is following the temporary rules when it is permanently tied to a permanent use. So we have got to reconcile that. So please direct staff to come back with those 4 plans, and let's start working on our entire park. Thank you.
Excuse me, Joan, could you tell me what your second point was? I missed it. your second. You said dedicate the park.
To unmute herself.
I'm sorry,
The second one, the second one is to complete all of the pedestrian bicycle connections through the entire park. So this shows a way to get from one side of the park to the other on a bicycle, which could be happening when Moody's moves, for example.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Chris Gorman, to be followed by Mayra Medina, to be followed by Carolyn Kramer, to be followed by Roger Davenport. And Chris, you're on.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sanchez, Deputy Mayor Keim, and council members. I request that you delay approval of items 1 through 7 in the list of the staff recommendations. I think the information is incomplete. It leaves out some essential details, and the study by KMA, and they did even note in there that they were not acting as fiduciary to the city, and that they couldn't even guarantee their information. So I don't think we have, much information here to say that this would be something that would be economically advantageous for the city. In fact, it could be the opposite. Looking back at saying, it's written in here that Sudbury requested to purchase the property in December of 2019. And think here, they're talking about sports and indoor sports. And this was before COVID and the shutdown that shut down a lot of sports facilities, even outdoor ones. So I think you just have to keep this in mind. Is it too soon to be making large decisions like this? I think, delay is in order. And regarding if they did develop the 2 multi-purpose fields in Park Site 1, I don't know what you think of when you think of developing a park. It looks like the city's really going to be the one developing it, because it says the city is required to provide grading, topsoil, water source, and electricity to the site. And then the buyer would develop. I don't know what they mean by develop. Maybe it means just throw a little grass seed, on the ground that's already been prepared. They would develop fields and turn it over to the city within 5 months from development upon stabilization of the fields. That sounds to me like maybe they're just going to throw a little grass seed on it. And that needs to be clear. These things should be spelled out. So, of course, if they don't do that, if we got the grant instead for that park site, well, then maybe they would give payment in lieu of. So we have to have that actually designated. What would that amount be? There are just too many unfinished things here. A lot of missing information, so I think it needs to be delayed and reworked. And I think that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. We can't locate Myra Medina. She's not in the Zoom, so we'll move on to Carolyn Kramer, to be followed by Roger Davenport, to be followed by Barbara Collins.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're on.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and council. Please put this item before you on hold. The city has been given this gift of land once considered to be unusable. The city commissioned a group of citizens years ago to come up with a plan for this land in the heart of our city, El Corazon. After many years, the citizens came up with a plan that was approved by a previous council. The intent of the citizens' plan was to have this park in the heart of our city, El Corazon, become the jewel for our residents. The plan was to turn this useless land into a beautiful park and a plan for self-funding. Now, through many deals with developers, we keep losing portions of our park to development. And now you want to sell off to a developer a funding source and mechanism for our park. Please send this item back and preserve this land as the people's park and quit selling off the source of funding to support this park. Lease this land so we have a funding source. So 1, please advise staff to come back with a plan to dedicate El Corazon as public parkland. 2, set up community workshops for public input 3, no selling of land until a revenue plan has been provided for our park. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Roger Davenport, to be followed by Barbara Collins, to be followed by Ambrosia Solis. Mr. Davenport, you're on.
Yes, good evening again. I understand how the land giveaway was calculated, although I do have some reservations about some of their assumptions. For instance, where does 2/3 of the ticket income go? They only claim 1/3 of it. Seems like an odd agreement, too, that the fact that their business plan gives a low return suddenly makes our land worthless. It seems like we could have had a zero-cost lease and the finances would have been the same for Sudbury. Instead, we're giving them the land for free, and once you hand over the land, it's theirs forever. But in response, I think the city deserves to get a lot more out of this, especially from the arena project. 3 suggestions. 1, why limit the per ticket revenues to $150,000 a year? There's no upside in this for the city. It doesn't hurt the owners at all to pay the city a fee for every ticket sold. They're still getting the other $19.50 from a $20 ticket, and the more tickets they sell, the better for everyone. I'd prefer to see the city get an unlimited 50 cents per ticket than bother with 5% increases every 5 years. But a better fee structure overall, and my recommendation, would be an unlimited 2.5% of every ticket sold. Then inflation and ticket prices would be automatically accounted for, and the city could have a positive upside if the arena is successful. Number 2, why give them 3.5 years of free per ticket fees? Seems like the city's taking much of the risk that they'll be successful, not the owners. If they fold after 3 years, we've gotten nothing but an abandoned building on land that doesn't belong to us anymore. And if 50 cents a ticket's going to break them, they're goners anyway. I can understand, finally, the 3rd item, giving some leeway on the parking lot that they build, but why give them free parking for the first 18 months on the overflow lot? They're not paying anything to build or maintain that lot, so all the income is found money for them. They should share it with the city. Overall, I thought this deal was quite the giveaway to the developer and arena owners, but not a very good deal for the city and people of Oceanside. I seem to remember that commercial operations at El Corazon were supposed to fund the operation of the park for the people. What happened? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Barbara Collins, to be followed by Ambrosia Solis, to be followed by Chris Allen. Mrs. Collins, you're on.
Thank you, Zeb. Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and council members, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. I am also very concerned about the sale of public land in El Corazon. I do understand that this is a long-term process that's been going on, but the sale of the land will strip out some of the lease income that was earmarked to develop and maintain the park. And one crucial question is, how will that revenue be replaced? I think that this could be a great idea, but there's too many questions about whether this is actually a good deal for the city, or is it a poorly negotiated transfer of public land? I don't understand why the public was not brought into this process to sell public land to a greater extent. There was no community workshop, no revenue plan has been provided, and no independent third-party economic analysis was released. I ask you to postpone the decision on the sale until the residents of Oceanside are given more information and the opportunity to make informed comments and suggestions, which then should be considered and incorporated into the process. Because isn't that public process 101? This is a vitally important public asset. And El Corazon is a rare jewel in this region. It has incredible potential to provide great enhancement to the residents of Oceanside. We're all very lucky to have it. So please listen to the citizens tonight and postpone the sale of public land. And let's have a full disclosure about the rationale for the sale and tell us the benefits that we will receive for the sale of the land. And also, let's ensure that we have a real commitment to El Corazon Park going forward. please move to dedicate all of the remaining parkland. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Ambrosia Solis, to be followed by Chris Allen, to be followed by Anthony Flores. Ambrosia, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ambrosia Solis, as mentioned, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. A lot of my talking points have already been stated by Roger, Joan, and Barbara, so I want to thank them. And I want to just address in summary much of what has already been stated. The concerns about the ticket costs and the potential savings and costs for the city, as well as the leasing of land that, from what I read in the documents and the staff recommendations, it does seem like there is leeway for the city council tonight to postpone and readdress what is, in my opinion, a bad deal. And just for some background, I have worked in local government for politicians. I also study political science and public service, so I know Deputy Mayor for District 3. I know you studied political science at Cal State San Marcos, which I actually also attended as well. And I just really hope that the city council reviews what's in front of them and makes a decision that's best for the future of Oceanside. My partner and I recently bought a house in District 3. We are down the block from Rancho del Oro and Oceanside Boulevard. I am originally from Los Angeles. I grew up in East LA all my life, and my partner has lived in Oceanside all his life. It took a lot to convince me to move away from LA and see what is out there and see how beautiful and amazing Oceanside is. And a big part of that is the open space and the parks. Buying a house near the location of the future development, and I saw the plan for how many parks were going to be made. I thought that was amazing for our future kids and for the future development of the community. But hearing that there are these options on the table to lease the land at not a good return for the city overall is really disappointing. And I really hope the city council votes to postpone and readdress this. I think the staff can also look at the deal that's on the table. I understand there is some agreements previously established and in the background provided in the documents, but from myself also working in Los Angeles city government and being a part of these discussions that go for lease for sale, it never ends up right for the public. It always ends up being better for the developer side. And I highly just really hope you all do the right thing and at least postpone and make sure you increase the amount of public parks available to our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Chris Allen, to be followed by Anthony Flores, to be followed by Jan DeRosiers. Mr. Allen, you're on. I believe you need to unmute yourself. We're going to...
Unmute yourself, sir.
All right, you're good.
Am I good now?
Yes, you are. You're on.
Perfect. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Christopher Allen. I'm a union carpenter representing the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters. It appears this developer would be receiving the mixed-use residential and parking portion of this project far below the value from the city. Public subsidies that a developer uses for their advantage because a developer gets a property far below market value should trigger prevailing wage. Remember, prevailing wage places safeguards and compliance mechanisms to prevent wage theft from local workers on the project. It'll also prevent payroll fraud that would rob the local workers and also the city of Oceanside of crucial tax dollars that go towards schools, fire departments, public works departments, our community. To add, this developer has a history of worker exploitation that runs rampant on their mixed use and residential developments. And I would hate to see the local workforce of Oceanside be that next victim. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Anthony Flores, to be followed by Jan DeRosiers, to be followed by Wayne Godinay. Mr. Flores, you're on.
Thank you, Zeb. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sanchez and City Council. My name is Anthony Flores, Craft Street, Eastside neighborhood. And I'm speaking to you today as a concerned citizen, but more importantly, as a parent of 5 kids who play who play rugby for Tri-City Thunder Rugby Club. I'm in total support of new recreational facilities, and I'm very excited to see how El Corazon turns out. However, my concern is and has always been field access. The kids from Thunder Rugby are consistently forced to practice at fields located outside the city of Oceanside, such as Vista, Carlsbad, and Encinitas. 90% of my daughter's team are Oceanside residents and are forced to play in cities far from home because the club cannot get access to local fields. Recently, we've had to travel to Long Beach, Ladera Ranch, and this upcoming weekend, we will be in the city of Riverside. I've heard multiple points brought on by other previous speakers, and they bring up a lot of money and those types of things. And I really don't care who owns what part of what parcel. What I do care about are the kids in the community being able to play in their own backyard. And more importantly, or not more importantly, but just as importantly, the city playing a primary role in the permitting process and not being left totally up to developers. We've heard nothing but soccer, and more soccer, and possibly the fields and El Corazon site going back to the city in 2059, meaning my kids won't even have access to these fields. Real access anyway. With that being said, I request that the city designate all of Park 1 as public parkland, that the public have real access to the arena, and that the city work more closely with the Friends of El Corazon to keep the community's best interests at heart. Our kids should not have to pay to play in their own backyard. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. We can't find Jan DeRogers in the Zoom, so I'll move on to Wayne Godinay, to be followed by Sydney Davenport, to be followed by Jimmy Knott. Wayne, you're on.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, again, thank you for your service to the community. I just wanted to make a couple comments here when I found out that El Corazon was on tonight's agenda. I appreciate all the input and the work that's being done up there. As some of the speakers spoke earlier, they're really concerned about public parkland and the sale of it. I just know that when I was Crystal Silica and I was growing up, I used to go on Oceanside Boulevard and see that. Never would have thought that it would become the heart of the city of Oceanside. Event down there, and I realized just a couple of years ago how valuable that was when some of the cup stackers came from around the world and around the country when we started doing by request, the World Cup Stack Championships back in the hometown where Cup Stack was invited. None of them wanted to go anywhere else to do the stacking except in the band shell where they saw the videos from the 80s and 90s, the original place where it started. And in realizing the hallowed grounds, that's how they felt about it. And that's how we should feel about El Corazon, whether we give 1 inch of it up or not to lease or sales. Please think it through in terms of that, because once it's done, it's done. And, some of these things are as a result of agreements that were made earlier, 8 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. We're in our 4th generation right now in our Samoan community. And this month being Pacific Islander month and, the Asian heritage and all of that. And for us to still be looking for a place for our Samoan youth, a lot of our Pacific Island kids acclimate more to rugby and football than they do to soccer. And they have to hear over and over again about, soccer arenas, 22 soccer fields, not 20, but 22 under control of a group, a lease agreement for a soccer club at Mance Buchanan Park, who was a bus driver, and son was Willie Buchanan, football player, and that's soccer. And I'm still waiting for and look at some repurposing in the city based on the master plan. So my final for the Parks and Rec master plan 2018 that we were part of, the Friends of El Corazon, we support them and plead, for dedicating the park to parkland, and also have to pay more attention and have input and transparency with regard to this group of volunteers. We can relate to them. we're in the same boat as them. And this actually should have been a workshop with more input and more dialogue focus on the details, because the devil is in the details. These are hallowed grounds, and it's very, very important for us to take a look at that, especially from a recreational community standpoint, and particularly our youth. So thank you very much. That's my comments, and appreciate your time. Thanks. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Cindy Davenport, to be followed by Jimmy Knott.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. And I appreciate a lot of the words that Wayne just spoke, that this should have been a workshop. There are so many details that aren't clear at all. And I think that it's evident that everyone who's looked at this agreement is puzzled about how much the city is giving away. Now, if we are forced to abide by the agreements already done, we can understand that, but there's a lot left to be done to the benefit of the city and its residents. So along with Friends of El Corazon, I totally agree. We need to dedicate all of the remaining parkland so that the public is ensured that there's a real commitment to this park. And I also think it's vitally important to prepare an update so that we have a plan for revenue. How are we going to come up with the revenue to develop the parkland, the recreational parkland? And so it seems like we're losing a lot with these sale and lease agreements. So we have to be shown how we will have a revenue stream that won't be a burden on the taxpayers of Oceanside. And I also wonder if it could be clarified, well, what happens if one of those entities declares bankruptcy and leaves? You know, maybe the land does revert to the city, but it's really unclear how we would fare in that situation. So please do delay a vote on this. We need to hash out the details. The public really needs a workshop on this. I think we all value the input that Friends of El Corazon has done already for 20 years. And we need to have more of their input and more input from the public. I think a lot of people have taken the time to look at this. And so they all need to have their voices heard. So let's make El Corazon a true jewel of a park in the heart of Oceanside. Thank you.
Thank you. We did find Jan DeRogers in the Zoom, but while we're getting her ready, we'll go to Mr. Knott, who's here in person.
Thank you, Zeb. Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. It's said that without a vision, people perish. Well, I can tell you this vision is stale, boring, and in the past. And listening to staff's presentation, it's sort of, shall I say, background of it is incomplete. And it's sort of, you're missing a lot of information. The public's guidance is missing and participation is missing. You need to have the information about how the public has participated in the decision-making from the get-go. My white beard was red when it took and started. That tells you how long it's been. We can accommodate both development and the necessary park goals that the public demand by integrating both together. Like, for example, the parking structure. You know, examples worldwide. Let's have tops to the parking structure. Let's put in basketball courts. Let's put in tennis courts. Let's look at ramping. Then there's another thing. Why not look at trails and put in some edifices up there, putting in also greenery, trees on top of parking structure. Let's redesign the arena to look like a hill, a natural hill with trail. Many other arenas around the world are doing this. Why can't Oceanside? Are we that boring? Now, let's also take a look and be creative. We got to get rid of this old designs, this old way of thinking. We got to look ahead. We got to look at what the state in looking at carbon, issues. This could be a carbon neutral, even carbon offset ability if we design it right. But what is it? What are you given? The plain old peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Let's look at something exciting with full recycling on site. Let's look at it. This could be a win-win-win proposition. But what are you being given? The stale bread of peanut butter and jelly. And one thing I'd like to say, I miss my old seat. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have Jan DeRocher. I believe you are unmuted, and you could begin whenever you can.
Thank you. Oceanside's a sequel to Finding Dory. Zeb found me. Thank you, Zeb. Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and councilpersons. Thank you for this opportunity to comment on this item. Jan DeRoja, a resident of Oceanside, speaking on behalf of the Friends of El Corazon. The deal before you tonight is not the best, but was drafted years ago and leaves you with little negotiation. But let's get the park dedicated at this time. Let's get it dedicated as parkland. This is going to bring back the confidence of the citizens in you that you do want this as parkland. The lease agreement confirms the terms of the lease and gives the city parking for Park 1 and Park 2 fields, but we definitely need that park at Park 1. We're asking you to show that you recognize El Corazon is a park and not just commercial development. So we ask that either you amend the proposal tonight, if you can, or direct staff to come back with a formal designation of all of Park 1, oh heck, just the whole park, as a park. So the community sees your commitment to the citizens, and we will get our first park on El Corazon. Now, I have two comments to make that are on my own. One is kind of snarky and one is extremely sincere. So starting with sincere, I really want to thank Colton Sudbury and his staff for all the additional work that he is committed to in moving our park forward. There's a lot of things that he has promised that are not part of his obligations. And they have worked with Friends of El Corazon since the beginning. And I personally just really appreciate them. The other one is kind of snarky, and that's just that I so wish that we could take to the bank all of those financial benefits that KM listed out in the deal and have those funds be put into generating more parkland at the park. But a lot of those benefits that KM listed, the financial benefits, are secondary, third. Some of them are county-wide. So that's my snarky remark. Thank you so much for letting me address you this evening. And let's make Park 1 a park. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comment, but we also like to remind individuals coming into Zoom to see if they can log in under their name. It makes it easier for us to find them as well. But thankfully, we were able to find Mrs. DeRoger. And that concludes the public comment.
Thank you very much. Did staff want to comment on any of the public input before we go to the council?
Pardon me? Yeah, Honorable Mayor and council members. There was a lot of comments, so it's hard to hone in on any one thing. A couple things that stood out to me, like the trails. One person talked about the trails. We are doing phase 2 trails. Those are in formulation right now, and we're going to be putting trails in at El Corazon. There's a lot. So if you have a specific question, that'd probably be better because there's a lot to.
Why didn't this happen as a workshop?
Pardon me?
Why didn't this go to a workshop first before bringing us a final deal? Like we did with the beach resort. We had workshops, we had extensive outreach to the community. This is a public resource. Why didn't we have any workshops at all on this with respect to these this proposal?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Borrego.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor and council members, we did not obviously schedule it as a public workshop, so it's kind of difficult to answer your question. Certainly that would have been an option, but we decided to take it straight to you as a general item as scheduled. I really don't have a direct answer for you in terms of why that was made.
Thank you. What about the promenade question by Ms. Nygaard, the Grand Promenade that apparently has been in discussions from day one?
Yes, and I can address that question. So as was shared with council earlier today, and actually this document was also posted on the website as part of this agenda item as well. Sudbury has committed, as Ms. Nygaard mentioned, to essentially do some of the beginning components of that Grand Promenade by installing some landscape gateway elements at 3 different locations, one at the entrance to the SoCal Sports Facility, one along a portion of the frontage of the parking lot to be developed, and then a 3rd landscape feature near the plaza at the proposed arena.
I guess the question that I have is why wasn't it included in this negotiation?
Well, the biggest challenge, quite frankly, with the Grand Promenade as it's depicted in the specific plan is that the overwhelming majority of that promenade runs through the middle of the existing SoCal parking lot, so it cannot be developed at this time.
Thank you. It's an interesting response. Let's go to the council. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, staff. I even in my short 2 years on council, this has been a very complex, multiple party, multiple consultants dynamic. And there was a plan that the community has worked on for many years. Unfortunately, that plan was not prepared for all the special surprises underneath the soil on El Corazon and the costs. The plan failed to look ahead at, hey, is this location going to be good for retail? Which it's not, and that's been proven. The commercial acreage that the previous plan in 2009 identified that would create some of this lease revenue to fund a future park is bad soil. It's not going to be developed. So, we're kind of limping along on a plan that doesn't have a funding source. And when that happens, opportunity knocks outside an unrealistic plan, and it's brought before council. We have public feedback, and we move forward. And so I support staff in their hard work and putting this very complex dynamic together. And going before the Planning Commission with the stadium, it got approved. Great. Lots of public opportunity. Lots of public opportunity. One thing that I do want to have happen, and I would like to give staff direction, and Mr. Borrego, in his very detailed responses to the public on all these questions before this item came up today, was I think it's prudent that we move forward on with a consultant, a new updated revenue plan and strategy for this park. We have to come to terms with reality that the old plan and commercial dynamic is not going to work. We have to look at other opportunities to build the park. I think one thing that most government lacks is building and preparing to build infrastructure and quality of life for our residents. We hear over and over and over again, we need more fields. We've had workshops, we've had council agenda items, we are trying to negotiate on something that may happen, an in lieu fee, but if we don't plan and we don't figure out how we're gonna pay for it, it's just gonna be a plan and it's gonna look pretty on a wall or in a book or online. So I would really like staff to move forward on a financial strategy. I don't know what the timeline would be to get something like that back, but we have to come to terms, and the Friends of El Corazon and the community need to be aware of, hey guys, this plan in the way we thought we were gonna fund this is not gonna work. So here's what may work, so we need to change the plan. And so that's what I would like to see done. One of the other items I heard multiple times was they want this designated as a park. I think what they're really trying to say is they want a overlapping covenant placed, but this is already designated parkland. Is that correct, Mr. Mullen?
No.
The park properties are designated in the specific plan for park and recreational uses.
So it can't change out of that designation without
It could change, but I think if the council were interested in an option to protect
It's not
it,
dedicated parkland yet, right? But the council could do that.
the city owns it. So the typical way that property is dedicated is by a private developer transferring it to the city with a deed restriction or some other form of dedication. The city owns the land. It's designated as not the two pieces of property that are subject to the purchase and sale agreement, but the park and rec property is designated in the specific plan. You could, if you so elected, give us direction to do some kind of restrictive covenant to limit its use for only park-related purposes, and that's something we could implement.
No, and I hear that, but I don't think that would be wise at this juncture, knowing that a plan we put together in 2009 has failed us because we can't pay for it. So why are we going to designate parkland that we're never going to be able to pay for? Let's re-examine how we're going to pay for this. Then we can look at, hey, does this park make sense here? Or maybe we do this here and it generates the revenue to do the park over here. That needs to happen before we start just overlapping covenants on something we don't have money to build. That's all I have to say on that.
Oh, no other lights. So I guess I'll get started here. Oh, okay, Deputy Mayor Keim.
I was curious of your thoughts on this as the last remaining council member who was involved in the 2013 DDA and your experience. I wanted to hear your thoughts going forward.
And I do appreciate that. I don't know how much what is before us could change, but I would hope that we could continue this item. First of all, I got involved with the El Corazon property back in 1998. This is before I became a council member, as a person who cared very much about this property that was given to the city, 500 acres, less than half of it that could be developed, right? Because we knew about, how degraded some places of it are, and also that some areas are reserved for fields. For a habitat. So we all understood that. We actually were given this land plus $1.1 million for restoration. Obviously, 1.1 wasn't a whole lot, but it certainly was a good start. And it certainly was, I know some people differ in their memory about this, but it certainly was a huge gift to the city. 500 acres in the middle of the city, when we were really desperate for land, for parks, for open space, and as you've heard from the public, active field space. So I am concerned that this has been piecemealed. We were given information that the arena can't even work, is not even possible unless we basically lease parkland to them for parking. We were told that. Why did it go forward first and then get approval, and then we have something else on the consent item for that. So that was, a really concerning thing. I think that the public has indicated, and there have been several people involved for over 30 years, that a workshop would have been really helpful, because I heard tonight ideas that I didn't even think of. And so I really think that we could have done that. This is hindsight better than foresight, but however, there is no rush. We could do a workshop. I mean, I haven't even met Mr. Sudbury ever. So it's, I wish that we could do this, because this is, and this is why I have this great sadness in my heart. This is meant to have been for our public, for our future generations. We all knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. There was a general idea that, okay, we're going to have to figure out how to generate revenue, because there was at the time especially a concern that funds that maintaining our other parks needed to continue. And so we needed to have, figure out how we can generate revenue. So that was the whole idea behind the commercial use, which, by the way, after the agreement was when we added, because the developer didn't see an ability to, generate revenue, we said, okay, let's do a mixed use. And so that's what we thought, that with that, adding housing, in fact, after the original agreement, would make that actually happen, to start generating these funds. So that we have no public access to this resource of an arena, I'm surprised by that. Maybe 10 times a year, whatever. I just didn't understand why that didn't even come up. I know that I had asked for, I said, well, how can we give away land, public land? Nobody does that. No cities do that. What about a long-term lease, a 99-year lease for free? And I was told that somehow financially that didn't work, and I don't understand. Maybe it's hard. If it's hard for me to understand it, how can the public understand this notion that we're giving away land? We have an existing agreement that we were to have access to 2 fields out of the 22. And unfortunately, and that was, almost 10 years ago. We have never had access to those 2 fields. And I see that as noncompliance with the original agreement. And I don't understand it. We are short field space. We've been begging for access to these 2 fields out of 22, 2 fields. I know the Oceanside Soccer has access to the other fields, but these 2 we were promised as part of the first agreement. So I was hoping that would be part of this agreement, that would be immediately accessible to us, because we need those fields. I am not here to say that the developer ever intended to not help us develop our park. I'm sure that he understood from the very beginning that was the whole basis, the whole goal for us to be inviting someone to work with us, offer acceptance, consideration. That is the contract, right? You have to have consideration. I guess it's hard for me to see the consideration part. So we discussed, I think it's okay to say in closed session, well, how are we going to explain this to the public? We ought to at least get something out of this. A couple of fields, a dog park, pickleball, the things that our master plan is calling for as the priorities, right? And so, I'm glad to see that there are 2 fields, but can we do that sooner? We get calls all the time, and it's, it kind of breaks my heart. I don't know, that we can't do anything. Basketball, oh my gosh, we have 2 indoor basketball facilities in the whole city. We really, really need a third. You know, with our kids being not being able to play at the Boys and Girls Club anymore, that's extra pressure on us to try to find space for our kids. So, you know, I would like to see the dedication. You know what we did? We lost space at El Corazon Park space by not dedicating it. Why? Because the county decided to come in and do a Live Well Center, right? Because it wasn't dedicated. So it's really, you know, there are some lost opportunities. So Joan Bachman had some ideas, dedicate what the parkland, that is specified parkland now, so we don't lose any more of it. Complete the pedestrian and bicycle paths, prepare an update to the revenue plan. We need a revenue plan. And I understand we have to be realistic. It can take a long time, but this is something that the public wants. Develop a parking plan. That, and along with the Grand Promenade, which I'm hearing, got to redesign it because now it goes straight through some fields. How can we be so much not on the same page? How can that happen, right? So I would suggest, let's postpone it. Let's add some of these in as much as we can with the public and recommit to making this happen. I understand your ideas about how we can't ever afford this. Well, I do believe that we can, but it's going to be piece by piece. And I think that it would be nice for us to be all on the same page, the developer as well as the public, and really truly be making this a partnership. I think we've lost track of that partnership, that dream. Yes, I know. By 7 seconds. So anyway, that would be my request. You've gone way over sometimes. And this is a 30-year project for me. So I know 10 minutes is not a whole lot. But I'm asking for that we consider continuing this for a short period of time. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Keim.
Just to start off, I do support the mayor's thoughts about having a workshop. I think that would have been a proper scenario to address this. And with that, I have a couple questions for Mr. Sudbury. Hi, thank you for coming today. After speaking with some of the Friends of El Corazon, that starting work on that promenade was really critical to them. Is there a way that we can commit to that tonight?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, one of the comments made earlier that the promenade, as shown in the specific plan, currently does go through what is a temporary parking lot for the SoCal Sports Complex. So it's not, there's just no way to do it exactly the way specific plan envisioned at this time, but we can still do it. We're going to do it. We've committed to that, to the Friends and to city staff. And then eventually, when the SoCal Sports Complex goes away, which is intended to go away, and the park comes in, then the final promenade can be put in as exactly per the specific plan.
Thank you. I also want to echo the mayor and how critically important those fields are to us. I think that was pretty consensus on council is we need to give something tangible back to our citizens. It's just, it's been a long road. And, the only time I've been to the soccer fields, El Corazon, was for an expensive tournament with my daughter. So it would be nice to really get those done quickly and get them out there for the public.
Understand. We want to see the 2 new fields happen as quickly as we can too. We asked for a little more time in the agreement to give us some time to raise the funds to do it, but we're committed to get it done as soon as we can. And I also want to comment on the use of the existing SoCal Sports Complex and the 2 fields that are already there that aren't being able to utilize all that much. We understand the frustration. We do, and we're trying to work on a way to help that situation be better. What happened is, and I think it's important everybody knows, is those 2 fields are supposed to be used for tournaments. We have to rest them, and we have to rest them a lot. And so the city doesn't have access to them every day of the week, 365 days a year. And we don't rest them or settle them down any more now than we did 10 years ago when we did the schedule with the cities. When we did the DDA and it was approved, we had that schedule. We put it in there, and it was agreed to that those fields would only be used when they could be used and not every day because they have to be rested. Having said that, a lot of time's gone by. We see the frustration. We're coming up with some other ideas that might work for everybody. One of which is, as you mentioned earlier, Oceanside Youth Soccer uses 5 fields every day, 5 days a week on a rotating basis. So we can rest 16, 17 fields always at any given time. One of the thoughts is, instead of having 2 city fields, is having the city grow the 5 fields to 7, and then have the city fields be those other 2, and they rotate throughout the complex. And that way they don't have to be rested nearly as much as the ones that are dedicated right now are being rested. That's the thought we've come up with to help with that issue. And then certainly when we build 2 more next to Park 1, that'll also help the use of the field. Can I expand a little bit since I'm up here? There's a lot of really interesting points that came up, and I think there is some miscommunication and misinformation too. I want everyone to know we are not developing in the park, and what we're developing is a commercial land, very different from the park. We are creating a parking lot on parkland, but it's the same size as the parking lot was already supposed to be for Park 1. So we're not taking any parkland for parking lots, the same exact area, the same amount of stalls, basically, that was already called for in the phase 1 park. And we're building it for free for the city. Now, we're going to use it, of course, for the arena. It's going to be X amount of stalls are there every day for the park when it comes in. And the balance are used for the park when we don't have any event. So that's part of the benefit to the city to get that parking in, and it's not on parkland, like I think some people think it might. As far as workshops, this project really was already approved. The environmental studies were all done. This went through the standing committee and the planning commission for all environmental studies, including traffic, and the arena specifically was approved as an allowable use in the specific plan at those meetings. Today was really supposed to be about getting the purchase and sale agreement formally approved as that the DDA requires. And so we weren't really, I think, prepared for some of these questions maybe, so we thought we'd already kind of been beyond that, but we understand this is, time has passed, and we did a lot of outreach years ago for this. It's not like it's a brand new proposal or brand new idea. We've always had residential there, and then for a long time, the arena. As far as, I've had so many things here I want to comment on. Oh, adding housing. We didn't add any housing. The Sterling added housing, so we are still building out the housing per the specific plan that we're allowed to do. That's about it. I think there's some other financial comments that were made that I don't necessarily agree with, and I think there's misunderstanding too, but I think it's a little too both right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
I think, again, as has been stated multiple times, we are following through with the DDA that was approved in 2013, but I do think we can come away tonight with significant progress. And on top of the promenade, I'm interested in having staff come back and designating Parkside 1 as parkland. So if we can move forward on that, I think the promenade, those are 2 big requests. And also an updated financial plan. So I think if we can separate those motions out from the staff recommendations, I'd like to make those when everyone else has finished their comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Weiss?
Thank you. I have a couple questions for Mr. Borrego. Mr. Sudbury just mentioned that both the arena project and the residential project had their complete environmental. If there were impacts identified, they're going to be mitigated as part of the development process. So really, there are no impacts that were not considered because they did go through their own separate environmental process already and have been completed.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Weiss.
The arena is going on village commercial property and is consistent with the specific plan.
Correct, yes. As the council may recall, we actually did an amendment to the specific plan a few years back to add an arena as a permitted use within the village commercial area.
And the residential project, even though that's not what we're here for, is also consistent with the specific plan.
Yes, it is.
What we're here for is the disposition of 2 pieces of property with these agreements, which are consistent with the DDAs that were approved a number of years ago.
Correct.
So these agreements on the disposition of the property don't change the specific plan, don't convert parkland into something else, don't modify what's out there now in regards to parks.
That is correct.
Thank you. I also will echo the comments about the financial strategy and Parksite 1, but I believe you addressed that in your email that we got copied on today, that you were going to be doing that anyway, that it's time to probably update those. So I'm fine with just you at least got 3 of us now, 4 hopefully to say update those. So I would like to see that. I don't know that we need a separate motion. My only 2 concerns though is I understand in the financial analysis that due to the development costs associated with this, it reduces the land value. I just want to make sure that as the rest of El Corazon develops, that those same development costs are not then double counted in some way.
If that's for me, Mayor Weiss, or I'm sorry, Councilmember Weiss, old habits die hard. Sorry about that.
Hey,
you don't get to double count. They do not get to double count development costs. The development costs have been accounted for what's necessary for these 2 projects.
Okay, thank you. And the only thing I would suggest to, as both the arena and the residential go forward, if there is some way of doing some type of higher local program out there so we can try to get Oceanside residents involved in the construction activity. That's a lot of money that was on the slide as far as the construction-related costs. If there's some way of doing something like that, I would encourage you to do that. I'm not going to make that a requirement. But with that, given what we're looking at here today, I'm going to move approval of staff's recommendation.
Is this a prevailing wage project? It is it not?
The public, any like public facilities, so the public fields would be prevailing wage. The arena is not a prevailing wage, or the residential is not a prevailing wage project, no.
Even though we're giving away the land?
Well, we're selling land pursuant to a negotiated disposition and development agreement that set forth what the return on cost would be. So there's not a specific requirement for the arena and for the multifamily residential. I don't think the multifamily residential would anyway, but there is a full indemnity for any prevailing wage claim as it relates to the city.
I'm seconding the motion of staff's recommendations.
Did you want to speak in addition?
Deputy Mayor Kime, were you going to make additional motions, or are you satisfied with, staff's responses? Those are important to us, so I think they're going to go ahead and work on it. I don't think an unnecessary alternate motion is warranted, or did you want to make?
No, that's for those. The only one additional one would be directing staff to come back on how to designate Parkside 1 as park. Okay.
So that's part of the motion that Parkside 1 is dedicated as parkland, will be dedicated as parkland.
I think we need to clarify with the maker of the motion and the second. Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah, the expectation is from Jonathan's response earlier that they were going to look at doing that and look at updating a financial strategy. So I would expect that at some point you come back with recommendations on how to go about doing that.
Just as an item on a future council agenda.
Motion is to refer those 2 issues to staff to report back to council.
Well, to direct staff to do that, right?
Well, we'd have to bring it back for your consideration in open session.
And that includes preparing an update to the revenue plan.
The financial strategy.
Financial strategy, yes. Okay, no other comments, please vote.
Motion approved, 401. Sanchez, no.
Thank you. Item number 6 is adoption of an ordinance amending Articles 1 through 16 of the Oceanside Traffic Code to make formatting changes, remove outdated definitions, update street names, permit online payments, regulate electric vehicle charging station parking and oversized vehicle parking, and make technical changes to the beach area parking and preferential parking permit programs. There's a motion and a second to adopt.
We have public.
Okay.
On item number
My apologies.
26.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Our only public speaker on this item is Ann Verheyen. Hopefully I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. And she is not in the Zoom, unless she is here in person. Ann Verheyen? Nope. Then there is no public comment
So
on this.
there is a motion and a second. Please vote.
I'll need to title, Mayor. I'm sorry. I know
right.
you read it, but it is required. This is the adoption of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending Articles 1 through 16 of the Oceanside Traffic Code to make formatting changes, remove outdated definitions, update street names, permit online payments, regulate electric vehicle charging station parking and oversized vehicle parking, and make technical changes to the beach area parking and preferential parking permit programs.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. We also have item 25. My apologies for skipping over that. And that is communications from the public regarding items not on the agenda.
We have 12 public comments on item number 25 on off-agenda comments. Our first speaker is Patricia Tirona, to be followed by Doris Cabrera, to be followed by Sherry Mackin. And Patricia, you are on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Patricia Tirona. I live on South Nevada Street. I am here to ask about the status of the Oceanside Climate Action Plan. Although a CAP was adopted in 2019, since then only 4 CAP ordinances have been drafted and adopted last year. Many important tasks that were supposed to be completed by May of 2020 but have not been completed, such as the annual report on CAP implementation. It was due in May 2020 and was supposed to be published on the city webpage for residents to access. It's been almost a year since it was due and the annual report hasn't been completed. I understand that in the last year, we have directed our focus on more immediate issues because of the pandemic. But now that we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, it's time to regroup and return our attention to our CAP and remember that cities have an enormous role to play to mitigate the climate emergency by implementing local climate action plans. And there is no time to waste. I request that the status of our CAP be agended, including the annual report on CAP implementation. I also request that the City and Council consider creating a CAP stakeholder committee with residents and representatives from business and environmental groups. A stakeholder committee would expand outreach and involve the entire community. What better time than now, while we are creating a new general plan, to incorporate the policies of the CAP into the plan and include the residents in the implementation of the plan. That will ensure the success of our CAP. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Doris Cabrera. She originally registered on Zoom, but she's here, so we'll take her. To be followed by Sherry Mackin, to be followed by Steve Mayshu. And if
Good
you can,
evening.
talk directly into the microphone if you can.
All right.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, now you can start my clock. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Deputy Mayor, and City Council members. I'm here pursuant to 2 things that are very important to me. I did write Deputy Mayor Kime an email last week saying I'd like to address the council regarding 1, the proposed widening and possible freeway interchange at Rancho Del Oro Drive, which I believe would be an absolute disaster. It would increase traffic, noise, pollution, and parking problems. And 2, the privatization of certain beachfront property in Oceanside, which, according to my legal research, is illegal in the state of California. So back to point number 1. Using Rancho Del Oro Drive, including myself, there are many senior citizens, many people living in Oceana, many elderly people who like one calm, peaceful, north-south road in our city. As you all are aware, I'm sure, unless you don't live here, the north-southbound avenues or major streets, including El Camino and College, are extremely, extremely full of traffic and just like parking lots, and it's very stressful. And it's nice for me to be able to drive down to my doctor's office, which is at the end of Rancho Del Oro, between the 76th and Vista Way, and just pop right in there without my blood pressure going to 300 over 200, which it would do on College and it would do on El Camino. There are just too many people on Red Bulls, too many people speeding, too many people texting, and you know what I mean. So there are many beautiful residential areas along this avenue that would have to be encroached upon or subjected to undue noise if that did happen. I'm going to move on due to time constraints to item number 2, which is beachfront property and the attempt to privatize them by a certain resort. I'm kind of glad these people are gone because they might be owners of one of them. It's simply illegal. It cannot be done. In Oceanside, in the whole state of California, for over 40 years, the California Coastal Commission has established that there is no private ownership of the beach beyond the mean high tide line. You can own the little part up by your residence or your building, but not the whole beach. The public has free access completely to that land. The only exception is military. Now, there is a Supreme Court case which was rejected by the U.S. Supreme Court of Vinod Khosla, who lives in Half Moon Bay. He attempted to privatize his beachfront property with his numerous acres and huge stuff, and it was cutting off a surfing beach. And the Supreme Court rejected his case. Therefore, the appellate case stands. And in the law of California, you cannot privatize the entire beach. I appreciate your attention. I know it's late. We've been here almost 3 hours. And thank you for letting me address you. And have a very nice evening.
Dory.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Sherry Mackin, to be followed by Steve Mayhew, to be followed by Sandy Beal. And Sherry, you're on.
Good evening. I promise it's the last time I'm going to speak tonight. I'm Sherry Mackin. I'm here to talk about something that happened in our neighborhood. Once on April 26th, and then again on May 1st, longtime South Oceanside resident Holly Owen was hit by hit and run drivers. One incident was at Vista Way and Coast Highway. The second and most devastating incident was at Ditmar and Cassidy Street on Sunday late afternoon. Holly was just released from the hospital with 2 fractured vertebrae, 3 broken ribs, and multiple contusions, to name a few of her injuries. We hope to see her on the mend soon. She's got the attitude of a fighter, and she will beat this. A GoFundMe page has been started for Holly. I urge people to give what they can to help her out. She's always been there for the South Oceanside neighborhood, doing what she could to support people in their times of need. So let's not forget her now. No donation is too small. I ask that the council direct staff to create traffic calming on Cassidy Street and utilize bulb outs such as those used to identify crosswalks at schools. The entire length of Cassidy Street at the 3 stop signs, one being Stewart Street and Cassidy, Horn Street. Both of those 2 stop signs are at either end of South Oceanside Elementary School. It is hugely needed. And one more at Ditmar at Station 3, where Holly was injured that afternoon. South O is a biking and walking community with lots of families in tow. Please think about Holly and others as you start to divvy up the federal infrastructure windfall, that $33 million you're expecting from the feds. Think safety, think bulb outs, think safety. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Steve Mayhew, to be followed by Sandy Beal, to be followed by Chiwa Slater. Mr. Mayhew, you're on.
Hi, Honorable Mayor and City Council. You should have a copy of my slides somewhere in front of you. I'm a member of Save Oceanside Sand. Oceanside is studying options for sand replenishment and retention, and the report is due out very soon. All of the many Oceanside studies over the past 50 years have all recommended groins, so this study is likely to do so also. One of the best local example of groins is Newport Beach. I'd like to tell you about them because it's very similar to our situation in Oceanside. In the 1960s, Newport Beach had a problem. Even though the dredged sand was being pumped onto the beach many times since the 1920s, it seemed to be eroding faster than they could add it. Newport Beach faces mostly south, and because it's not protected by the Channel Islands, it loses sand even in the summer to the large, deep canyon just off its coast. In 1965, they lost 165 feet of beach and would have lost more, but they stabilized it with sandbags. This is similar to Oceanside losing our sand each year to Carlsbad Canyon. In 1968, the Army Corps installed 3 sheet pile groins at 40th, 44th, and 48th Street, and they appeared to help to hold the sand. With that success, in 1970 and 1973, they added rock groins and armored with rock the previous sheet pile groins. Those groins still exist today and are in good condition. They have slowed the loss of sand to Newport Canyon. The photo shows what the 8 groins look like today. You can see a close-up of the 29th Street groin in the bottom left. You can also see the sand has remained in place for 50 years. I captured the Google Earth historical photos of the beach and that one groin going back to 1985 every few years, and I'll email them to you so you can see how stable the beach has been over the years. Groins have more than paid for themselves in saving from dredging. Properties are protected, and surfers love the breaks by the jetties. Why wouldn't they work for Oceanside? One argument we hear is that groins in Oceanside would strip Carlsbad's beach of sand. Experience with groins around the world and models by engineers have shown conclusively that fully backfilled groin fields do not disturb the literal flow of sand. I hope you'll open your mind when this study results are completed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Sandy Beal, to be followed by Chiwa Slater, to be followed by Colleen Balch. Sandy, you're on.
Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sanchez and City Council members. I'm Sandy Beal, the President of the Homeowners Advisory Committee at Rancho San Luis Rey Mobile Home Park. I'd like to tell you about one of many problems that the homeowners have with our management company, Star Management. During the COVID-19 closures, we received 3 harassing letters stating that all of the items in storage in both of the clubhouses had to be removed. The first letter, dated June 23, 2020, demanded that everything in storage be removed within 30 days. The second letter, dated July 1, 2020, again demanded that everything in storage be removed within 30 days. The third letter, dated July 13, 2020, referred to the, quote, stakeholders and said a meeting would be set up with the, quote, stakeholders from each group that has items in storage. I want to add that many homeowners called and sent emails to tell Star Management how they felt about removing items from storage. Both of these clubhouses have been lovingly used for numerous events by the homeowners since Rancho San Luis Rey opened in 1973. During this time, the groups that have items in storage met with Bruce Stanton, who is the Golden State Mobile Homeowners League attorney. The cost of the attorney was $220. After the third letter, there was a telephone meeting August 12th with the, quote, stakeholders. This was six weeks after the first letter was sent to remove all the items from the clubhouse storage. We were told through 2020, nothing had to be done because of COVID-19. We were told, quote, no rush, and, quote, the goal was not to strip all the storage space. These quotes were from Jeff Leake of Star Management, who also apologized for the previous letters demanding everything in storage be removed. Now back to May 5th, 2020. In Clubhouse 1, there are 3 bookshelves, including all of the books missing, an estimated 100 books. In Clubhouse 2, which Star Management calls the main clubhouse, there are 2 bookshelves missing, another estimated 100 books. There is a ping pong table, paddles, and ping pong balls missing. There is a locked cabinet that was handmade by one of the people who plays pool to hold pool cues and pool balls. Luckily, they had the wherewithal to remove the cues and balls at the beginning of COVID-19, so the cabinet is only missing.
Sandy,
these
that's
items
time.
were never part of storage, so homeowners were not afraid they would be
That's
taken.
time, Sandy. Unfortunately, that's time. Thank you. Our next public comment is from Chiwa Slater, to be followed by Colleen Bulge, to be followed by Dirk Akima. Mrs. Slater, you're on. Oh, you muted yourself. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I mute.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
She's back to be muted.
And now you're back to being muted. Okay, we're going to do it one more time. There. Let's. I think that works.
Okay.
Perfect. You're on.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and council members. My name is Chiwa Slater. I'm a longtime resident of the San Luis Rey area. And I'm here because I'm concerned about Oceanside's failure so far to commit to community choice energy. Community choice energy would allow the city to procure power on behalf of all of us from an alternative supplier while still receiving transmission and distribution service from SDG&E. As far as I can tell, after more than 2 years of feasibility studies and proposals to pursue a CCE agreement with other cities, we're still waiting for a plan to be approved and put into action. Oceanside needs a CCE. Yes, to save us all a little money, but more importantly, to have the freedom to choose to alleviate the problems of air and water pollution and greenhouse gas emissions by getting off of fossil fuels. 8 other cities in our county are already using community choice energy. What about Oceanside? 2 years ago, our city council opted to pursue a possible CCE agreement with Vista, San Marcos, and Escondido. But 3 weeks ago, I read that those 3 cities are doing another feasibility study that apparently doesn't include Oceanside. So my request to this council is that you move Oceanside forward and take steps to join one of the 2 existing CCEs in San Diego County. That will be the fastest way for Oceanside residents and businesses to gain the benefits and to somewhat lower our energy costs. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Colleen Bulch, to be followed by Dirk Akima, to be followed by Kathy Toon. Colleen, you're on.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Mayor Sanchez and Council, for listening to me tonight. I would like to chime in on a little bit of what Sherry Mackin had to say regarding Holly. Our community here in South O has continually requested to have police come and monitor the traffic here in our area. We have 4-way stops that are continually run. Nobody even puts a brake on, especially on Cassidy Street. And we've got schools on Cassidy in California that continually have problems with people that just don't want to follow the rules. And along with that, I happened to stumble across an old agenda from 2016, January, of when they decided to do the road diet at the dip on Oceanside, or Coast Highway, excuse me. I was just wondering how come we still don't have the crosswalk that was supposed to be put at the Loma Alta crossing. We also don't have an end to the pilot program. We have asked multiple times of staff to find out where that project is. Nobody can answer our questions. So I'm just asking for staff and for the council to please address the issues of lacking of police. It's staffing an issue is what I'm sure it is, but we still need their presence here in our community. And Holly's a prime example of that. And she's not the only one. My sister had her foot broken at Coast Highway and Vista Way by someone running over her foot. So it's not an isolated thing. It's a constant thing. And for some reason, the city doesn't seem to have the personnel to send down here to properly monitor our traffic problems. And that also includes semi-trucks driving through our neighborhoods that are not on the truck routes. So that's my comments for tonight, and I appreciate you listening, and thank you again, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Dirk Akima, to be followed by Kathy Toon, to be followed by Phil Johnston. Mr. Akima, you're on.
Good evening, City Council members. Dirk Akima,
year resident and Save Oceanside Sand. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I guess so. Yes. What has happened to our sand and our beaches? And what are we going to do about it? Well, we're on a coastline with sweeping currents, and our natural sand supply
Well,
Dirk, you just muted yourself.
Zeb, can you hear me?
I could hear you.
Okay, good.
Right.
I'm sorry. Okay.
All right, your time will resume.
Thank you. Well, what can we do about it? Many options. We have sand nourishment, we have sand retention, sand bypass. We could create a living shoreline. Oyster beds are possible. We could build submerged reefs, breakwaters, jetties, and then there's groins. Let's not exclude any option when it comes to rebuilding our beaches. All ideas are welcome. A recommendation, in fact, a solution is being studied right now for Oceanside by the Global Engineers GHD Incorporated. Very exciting to anticipate what those findings are going to be. Let's seek a scientific solution to this man-made mess of our beaches. Across the globe, several cities, countless cities and resort towns have found ways to keep sand on their beaches. Waikiki, for instance, Australia's Gold Coast, the Jersey Shore, the Carolina coast, and then our neighbor Newport Beach have all found engineered solutions to their erosive sand issues. So where do we start? A buried pipeline to allow annual dredging and future sand bypass is absolutely a no-brainer. Why do we allow Manson Construction to show up every year, drag the same pipeline to our beaches, and then remove it a month later at enormous cost? I'm thinking it probably costs the Army Corps $1 million a year just to drag that pipeline in. They could save so much money if they considered a buried permanent pipeline that would serve the same function. Time, money, and now restricted beach access would be saved by a permanent pipeline buried in the sand along the strand. Outlets could be made at Breakwater, Sport Fisher, the Pier, Tyson Street to allow even distribution of the sand. You'll notice that this year we only put sand as far south as the Pier. We weren't able to get to Tyson Street because of the Grunion Run. If we had a pipeline there, it would have made it a lot easier. Anyway, if as at the same time that we're burying that pipeline, we should also consider building a seat wall along the strand, and of course that would help.
Dirk, that's time.
Time.
Yeah.
Real briefly, despite a mild winter this year, our beaches are looking worse than ever. Cobbles now cover most of the shoreline, and very little dry sand is left for family fun. Please urge city staff to initiate a conversation with the Army Corps to save Oceanside sand. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Kathy Toon, to be followed by Phil Johnston, to be followed by Steve Davidson. We're getting Kathy on. Kathy, you are on.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and honorable city council members. I'm Kathy Toon, and I live in Rancho San Luis Rey Mobile Home Park. I'm a board member of the Homeowners Advocacy Committee and also a member of the Complaint Committee. Tonight, I'd like to address the topic of park management. Star Management has failed, in my opinion, to manage their park. While we are all very familiar now with the failure of the items listed on the health and safety inspection, which Rancho San Luis Rey didn't pass, I want to remind you tonight that park management is a multifaceted business. Some of the things that really do impact the quality of our life are often less obvious. And the thing that I would like to address tonight is the failure of Star Management to respond to homeowner complaints. I just received this complaint yesterday, and I'd like to read it to you on behalf of Phyllis Nunez, that lives 2 doors down from me and adjacent to the neighbor that I will be talking about. Her complaint was this: according to the Health and Safety Code in mobile home residency law, there are specific requirements that must be met in order to alter an existing lot line between our homes. In spite of this fact, Terry Trapani, my neighbor in Space 9, has done so without my permission. In fact, he has built a fence that encroaches more than 3 feet on my lot space, extending the entire length from front to back. Further, he has planted large palm trees less than the required distance from the fence along its length. There is also a very large bush planted at the end of my driveway that is messy and covers my driveway with leaves. It is so overgrown that I cannot see when I'm backing out. Obviously, I have several issues with the placement of this fence, bush, and trees on my lot space. They are: number one, the park owner did not submit an application or secure a permit from the city to alter the lot line between our homes. Number two, I never received a copy of the plot plan for this
Kathy,
project.
unfortunately, that's time, Kathy. 3 minutes goes by really fast. I apologize.
Indeed.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next public comment. It's from Phil Johnston, and followed by Steve Davidson. Phil, you are on.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, this comment is regarding item 2 from today's closed session, which is litigation, NRF project owner v. City of Oceanside. Please defer making a decision on continuing the city's defense of the Measure L result until after the presiding judge releases his ruling. Acting before then would be an uninformed decision. There is no cost to waiting for the ruling, and after the ruling is known, an informed decision can be made through the normal processes. Making an informed decision rather than an uninformed decision is clearly the more favorable path. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move into our in-person public comment from Steve Davidson, and he is here in the audience right now.
Honorable Mayor and Council people, thank you for your time. I've emailed all you guys as well as made phone calls trying to meet with you individually about the property known as Ocean Shores. Used to be the high school that's now defunct. And there's quite a few things that I'm sort of concerned with. When I tried to find out information about it months ago, people didn't get back to me from staff and other things like that. Then last minute, I was luckily given information Friday morning to find out how to do a proposal other than the proposal that making it a homeless shelter and using it for other purposes. It's prime property. It's a waste of money to do that type of thing. I have a solution to the problem, and I would like to put an independent art school there, but also part of the program, and I don't have a lot of time to explain all the things, but part of the program is to actually have housing as part of the art school that would actually help people who are in need and not only get them out of a situation into just a housing, which is temporary. It's never really going to solve the problem, but also have an educational process where they can get past the problem and open up their own business or become a viable employee. Also, in doing so, what I'd like to do is see the fire department taken from that one corner property, which is very dangerous, and move to the other side of the property and utilize that property as part of the school process and also puts I'm trying to think of the terminology. Anyways, a cement barrier that gets rid of that stop sign, which is basically a speed trap, and also causes a lot of issues for people who are driving like with a stick and stuff like that. The financial benefits to having a art school is way outweighs a homeless shelter. A homeless shelter eventually in all cities creates a skid row type of thing with all the money that's being spent in the El Cortizon area. It doesn't make sense to do that kind of a thing there. We already have that kind of problem down by Brother Benno's where the police are continually going over there. Why would you spread that issue into other parts of our city? It just doesn't make sense. And I'm sorry that we have that problem even by Brother Benno's, but it's not a wise thing for our community. Also, anytime you bring in an art school, which would also help with our the 14 cities that are for the California program, but also when you bring in an art school, it actually raises the property value. So it benefits not only the people that are in the area financially, but also will benefit the city. I've also emailed a bunch of information about how I can benefit this city and make it more financially viable for them to do that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this concludes the public comment on off-agenda items.
Thank you. Last item before adjournment is our mayor and or council member items. Excuse me, general council member comments. My apologies. Anybody want to say anything? Councilmember Rodriguez.
You're good. Tomorrow is National Day of Prayer. A large number of pastors and churches will be meeting at noon by the fountain outside the council chambers. Some of the churches that will be there include Generation Church, pastored by Tim Parlier, Calvary Chapel Living Hope, Brad Lambert, Life Point Church, Mark Finnegan, Gary Lee at the Cross, and Ron Ost, Grace Vineyard, and many others. So encourage you, Dias employees of the city, to join us tomorrow at noon as we pray together. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes today's meeting. So I'm moving to adjourn this meeting to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. Thank you. And happy Cinco de Mayo.